Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome back to UKDEML for what is round number 6 of the season. That is right, we are now into the second half of the season, where tonight we have made a trip to Bahrain. It was meant to be Portimao, but we've made a pre-adjusted calendar arrangement for this evening, where Portimao and Bahrain have swapped places. The drivers have just started their qualifying session. Their first laps have just been completed. Dave Gregory at the moment is the one topping the times. But it should be a very interesting evening ahead. Of course, David Wrench looking to go 5 for 5. And we'll see what we have on offer. My name is Max Ring. I'll be taking you through all the action tonight alongside, not Nathan, but Thomas Groves. How are you, Thomas, on this Monday evening?
I am very happy, very excited to be here, filling in as a last-minute replacement. And I will say there's no better way to spend a Monday evening than with some sim racing commentary. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what we've got here. We've got a good variety. Well, I was going to say we've got a good variety, but everybody seems to be in the BMW this week, so you can guess what the meta car is, but everyone's justified in taking it, of course. Bahrain, the track I've never actually commentated on, but I'm very much looking forward to kind of seeing what we get up to here. Just under 7 minutes on qualifying, so last few laps being sorted out right now. I mean, it should be a great night for some sim racing, Max.
Yeah, it should be a really great night. Of course, as we know, the BMW has been the fastest car. We saw it last week in Fuji as well, where we had the dominant David Wrench make it 4 wins in a row, and it would have been a 1-2 if Joe Juddy was able to, of course, get his way into second place. He's, of course, in the Mustang, but we had, of course, the Porsche driver of Ollie Parker in his second race this season, took that second place spot. But, of course, as we are now with 6 minutes to go left in qualifying here at Bahrain, at the moment, it is Brad Jones who sets the pace in the BMW. Of course, a lot of BMWs throughout the field. It is the meta car, but everybody does choose to take it. It's between that and the Mustang really here tonight, as Dave Gregory, talk about the Mustang, goes to the very top here, Thomas. And of course, a circuit like Bahrain, you need a few laps to get those tyres up to temperature, especially in key traction zones like here at turn 1.
Absolutely, there's a number of opportunities in this lap where you do need to make sure your tyres are up to temperature, which on LMU especially, I've take it from experience, it can be difficult to do, and especially in a GT3. Now these guys have got the luxury of enough time to warm those tyres up and set down a few good laps, which of course, if we get to a stage in the race, let's not forget it's 90 minutes tonight, there will be times where you are hot lapping at times during that race. That is inevitable. So just getting that rhythm sorted out early, being in that position where you know your braking points, you're confident with the car you've got under you, you're confident on the grip levels, of course, as well, because we know LMU has a very complex tyre model. I know it has a very changing grip model, and it will punish you if you overstep that mark. Because I must confess, I've got quite used to that, especially in the Ford at Le Mans, which was my first ever taste of LMU, and that took quite a while to get sorted. But no, yes, as you mentioned, plenty of key traction areas at this track. It's one that loves a harsh braking zone. Also, we've got David Gregory coming through this final few corners. These are very high commitment corners as well, because you've got essentially it's like a high to medium speed corner. You need to use all the little downforce that you are provided by in the GT3, and you've got these shallow corner entries through the final couple of corners where you really do need to get the power down.
Yeah, you certainly do indeed, and it's a circuit that of course does reward driver skill, especially in these cars. There are some calls like this, the final corner, where getting the power can be a little bit twitchy. Of course, you do have traction control and ABS, but it still doesn't help you the full way. Dave Gregory in the first sector was up, in the middle sector was down, but does still find an improvement. But George now goes to the very top in the BMW by just under a tenth and a half. Clear of the Ford Mustang. There's a purple final sector there as well for Robert Jennings, who's just made his way through in the Ferrari behind. Peter Davidson in the BMW. Ignore that it's the placeholder Porsche. It is a BMW he is driving. He's gone purple in the first sector on a 36.3. Green in the middle sector. Let's see what he can produce now through the remainder of the lap. I'm hearing David Wrench might have some technical issues, and that's why he's not really been on a lap just yet. And as we now make our way on to the brakes with Peter Davidson through the final two corners, what is it going to be for the BMW man? A purple first, a green middle. Is it going to be a purple final? Getting a lovely slipstream off the car in front, and it is enough for provisional pole. He does go to the very top by a 10th and a half. And it is very nicely done indeed. That makes it 2 BMWs in that top 2. And that then makes it 3 in the top 4. But now Tim Bob in the Lexus has gone purple in the first. But in the middle, it is Diamond, who is also on for maybe a diamond lap.
Absolutely. Final third sector here where we've got a purple. Well, it was a purple for a moment. It's just gone green, so someone else has gone faster. Can we get a map that is faster than Peter Davidson in the BMW? It's coming up to the line now. It will be an improvement, and it will be up to 6th for Diamond in the second best sport, but it is BMW 1, 2, 3, 5, 8. So we can certainly tell there's a reason for it being the meta car, but a great lap by Peter Davidson there. Here's David Gregory. Now what we're seeing here is, even though this track is under darkness, the grip levels are rising all the way through qualifying. That is why you're seeing so many purple sectors. And Max, we have our first sub 2:01 lap from David Gregory.
Lovely stuff there from Dave Gregory to go. Sub 2 minute and 1 second, a 2:09.26 is the lap time set by the Mustang. George made his way up into second place. Now back to Tim Bob, who's actually lost time in the middle part of the lap to his previous best. Let's see what the Lexus can muster up, though, through the final part of the lap. Tom Stevens moves themselves a little bit further up the order across the line here for Tim Bob, and it is no positional improvement, a slight improvement on lap time, but not an overall position gain. So Dave Gregory does just hold that upper hand. Here comes David Wrench to the line, crawling very slowly, and I think that is just showing off the issues he is having. He pulls off to the side of the road, not the way the championship leader, the man looking to defend his streak, would have liked this qualifying session to go. Of course, we've only got 40 seconds left, so everyone starting their lap times now here, Thomas, will be starting their final laps. And by looking at my timing screen, at the moment, at the front of the field, it is only George who is setting a green first sector.
Here we go then. As you said, George, on that 30, we've just gone yellow as well, actually. That might be for David Wrench. Of course, we saw him very unhappy, clearly, with something in the car. We'll have to wait and see what that is, and hopefully he can get that fixed in time for the race. As you mentioned, has won the first 4 rounds of the championship, and if he can get that fixed, it would be great to see him try and last the first challenge of sorts. Hopefully he can get that race fixed. But the other thing is, every one of the other 18 drivers in this championship will now know that David Wrench, there's something wrong with his car. There's a chance here to break the streak of David Wrench. There's a chance here to get your own name on the top of the podium. Coming through here at the moment, he's running in P2. It's going to be improvement for BL in the... well, there won't be an improvement because his third sector wasn't quite so good. Jennings also goes up to 3rd in the Ferrari, so a chance to break the streak of the BMWs. We're now coming to the final cars coming across the line. Now, this is Peter Davidson. He's gone fastest in the first sector by 0.2 of a second there. So a purple first sector. Will it be a purple second? That's going to be crucial. And again, he's in the BMW. He may look like he's in a Porsche. That is the placeholder car. So what can Peter Davidson do, Max? As Stevens comes over the line with an improvement to go 4th. It's all about the BMW of Stevens at the moment.
It certainly is. Let's see what Peter Davidson can do. He was up as well by 0.2 in the middle sector. This is certainly tracking like a pole position lap time, and the BMW streak will remain intact. So far for Dave Gregory, he's the one trying to break the status quo with that Mustang, but Davidson might mean that his statement of a lap will just fall short. Here comes Peter Davidson to the line. Brown moves himself up into 4th, and Davidson does go to the top of the times by 0.2 of a second. He snatches away that pole position brutally from the Mustang driver, who spun on his lap as well. We saw that on board with George as he made his way through turn 13, but it is going to be Peter Davidson who takes the top spot here in qualifying. And for championship leader David Wrench, he is struggling with some issues. Joe Juddy as well, the man second in the standings, is not going too strongly either, as they both start on the back row of the grid. Here are your results from this evening's qualifying session. It's Davidson who takes pole position, closely followed by Dave Gregory, then George in third, Tim Bob fourth, Brown in 5th, Tom Stevens 6th, Jennings in 7th, Brad Jones 8th, 9th for Jack, and Diamond rounds out the top 10. Of course, the rest of the grid is Craig Lua in 11th, Carl Fenton, Maureen Dubé, Edward Jones, Tom Goad, George Powsland, Ollie Parker, Joe Juddy, and David Wrench. The 3 drivers that finished 1, 2, 3 on the road last week at the back of the field. Now just get ready on waiting for this race to start. But of course, with these issues now arising here, Thomas, for David Wrench, it looks ever more likely that we are going to get new, of course, a race winner, our only other race winner this season.
Absolutely. And what I will say as well is from qualifying, what it looks to be is a really, really close front of the field. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of competition for that win tonight. And the fact that David Wrench and the top 3 from last week are qualifying in the bottom 3 on the grid, it's just going to make everyone else that much more hungry to take a win or a podium and throw themselves back into championship contention. Because remember, we are only halfway through this series. There is another 4 or 5 rounds to go. And there is every chance that if David Wrench, has a bad weekend here, that may continue. We don't know, but you've got to take your opportunities as and when they come. I'm just seeing Tim Bob and George BL there, split by 1,000th of a second on the grid. Incredibly, everybody just slowly going to the grid. We've got about 1 minute and 20 before we're due to start this race. It's a BMW 1-2, as we possibly expected. 3 with the Lexus of Tim Bob there in third place. But I think what we're going to be seeing tonight is an absolute touring car fest in a way.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a proper scrap for this race victory. Of course, we saw last time out Ollie Parker come under all sorts of pressure for that second place in that race. David Wrench was able to break away once Joe Juddy had his spin in Fuji. But here in Bahrain, we're going to have a whole different story. And David Wrench, his issue has been fixed enough, he says in the driver's chat. So it does mean there will be an opportunity for him to maybe fight his way through the field. It's not all over yet, ladies and gentlemen. It's not all said and done. So, of course, as we get ready for the roll to the green flag, interesting to note. Let's quickly have a look at your drivers' standings while we wait for the command. It is David Wrench who leads the way on 112 points, closely followed by Joseph Judson, of course, Joe Juddy on 76, and Robert Jennings on 43. Tim Bob also on 43. David Brown on 42. So very close there for that third place. There's Ollie Parker, Peter Davidson, Stevens, Glenberry, and Brad Jones rounding out the top 10. Edward Jones, Carl Fenton, Alexandra Barncroft, Tom Go, Dubé, Gladwell, Powsland, Luer, Leslie Pryor, FDQ, Joshua Lindsay, Oliver Bradley. Lindsay rounds out your point scorers. And right on cue, we are now rolling to the green flag. Of course, 90 minutes of action upon us. There will be a pit stop to be made, and it'll be all down to the strategy front. We saw Ollie Parker pull off a magnificent strategy last time out. We saw drivers hit the pit lane wall last time out as well. And we're now all gearing up for that green flag here in, of course, Bahrain. The Bahrain International Circuit will pay host here to round 5 of the season. To get the second half of the season underway, it is Peter Davidson and George on the front row of the grid, When do we get that green flag command? And it is now, and it's a great start from George, who's completely left Peter Davidson, who's not moved off the line. Peter Davidson from pole has not got the greatest start at all, and he is crawling down the pitch straight. Maybe an issue there with potentially his pit limiter being stuck on, but that has given George a great start. Oh, and I think we're having a lobby restart. I'm unsure. We just had Ollie Parker go straight into the back there of George, but we do have Jack now heading straight on and now battling with Joe Jolly. Yeah, I do believe this is a lobby restart. We're going to head to a quick intermission while we get some news. Be back in a few moments' time. gentlemen, for what is now going to be our second qualifying of the evening. A short 5-minute burst. Ignore what happened in the last qualifying. This is what will set the grid. After a small technical hiatus and issue with the last server, we are back once again. And of course here, Thomas, I mean, a majority of these drivers have had time to go around this circuit in pure anger. Others haven't. But also, with it only being 5 minutes of quali, tyres don't really have much of an opportunity to be up to temperature.
Absolutely, that's the thing. You've now got to basically reset, go again, and we've got 5 minutes for these laps to be set. It's basically qualifying, but you've got to do so much in such a short space of time. I really think that the key now is going to be, as you said, heating up these tyres. That could well be what decides the order, and it could well be a topsy-turvy order with the short amount of time. If you make one mistake, then that is tenths of lap time slipping away from you. So this is where we're going to see the consistency and potentially the cream rise to the crop, but also you could have one great lap out of nowhere, and suddenly you've rather up the order on the race start.
Yeah, we certainly will. If you had a poor qualifying in that longer session, you can now make your amends. You can right those wrongs. And for the likes of Juddy, Ollie Parker, and also for David Wrench, they have an opportunity now to qualify further up the field. Peter Davidson thought he took pole position with a stonking lap in the final parts of qualifying, but he's now going to have to do it all over again, and these drivers will only have 2 laps to have an opportunity at taking pole position. And the first driver on the lap, ever so slightly further ahead, will be Peter Davidson. So let's now go on the board with the BMW as he powers his way down that main straight. We're going to go inside the cockpit of the BMW as he makes his way onto the brakes just as the curb starts, brings the car down to first gear, nuzzles the nose in nicely, then straight over to turn 2. A little bit dislodged there by the curb, but shouldn't affect him too much. He now makes the run up the hill through 3, be all the way on to the brakes of 4, braking at the 100-meter board, down the gears, down to second, over that inside apex curve nicely, run the car, then out wide, use all the circuit you possibly can on exit, before, as you head into 5, which sets you up for turns 6 and 7, this 2 very difficult corners in a heavy car like the BMW. Purple first sector goes the way of Tim Bob. We know that Lexus is fast in the first part of the lap, a little bit wider there from the apex than what Peter Davidson probably would have wanted, but of course cold tyres, cold brakes, these first laps aren't going to mean too much here, Thomas. This all mainly just building up for this second run.
That's absolutely it. You're basically going to have a bank lap. You might choose to go and just set a time, which, you know, we've seen it in the past in the likes of F1. You can't leave it too late. Wait for the track too long, and then you don't get to set a qualifying time. These guys are under high pressure to get these laps down and make sure they can get laps on the board, because, you know, even though it's a 90-minute race and your pace is surely going to be enough to get you up the order, if you do qualify poorly, you just want to start as high as possible in any race. I mean, it's a universal sim racing thing. We're seeing Pete Davidson come through the final few corners now. He's on a green lap so far. So green sector 1, green sector 2. Don't know who's setting those purple times at the moment, but he's on the medium tyre. But yes, this is really a chance to get back into the rhythm that we mentioned during the first qualifying session, and try and get over the, you know, you've got the anticipation of going into a race, the server then gets reset, and now you've got to go again, and this is where it really does count. First lap, then the first fastest lap, we're already in a sub 2-minute 1, so that is telling me these tyres have been heated up rather nicely, and in fact we've got the top 3 all within 1.5 tenths.
Oh, that's a spectacular start to this session. Ollie Parker, who was starting on the penultimate row of the grid at the end of the last qualifying, has now put himself onto provisional pole, still waiting for the likes of David Wrench, who I believe is still having some slight issues, and Joe Juddy to come to the line. So we'll see what Juddy has to offer. I'll keep an eye on the first sector splits fuel as well. Tim Bob has just gone even faster, a 36.0 in the first sector, and Juddy backs out of things. He will not find a lap time, and he'll start from the back row of the grid. So for Tim Bob, he is purple through the first sector. It's not an improvement by Ollie Parker, but Tim Bob very deep onto the brakes into turn 8. Peter Davidson isn't improving either in the first sector. I think he might have actually invalidated this lap, so the top three aren't able to set lap times just yet, and that's certainly not going to spell any world of good here for Tim Bob, as he might now tumble down the order. But usually here, Thomas, in short qualifying sessions like this on LMU, come that second lap, you can usually find at least 3/10 to half a second on your previous lap.
Absolutely. I mean, that's just the effect of the track warming up, the tyres warming up. You're getting more back into that rhythm. But at the moment, we've got Ollie Parker in the lone Porsche, making it a BMW sandwich with Tim Bob there in third. Now, we saw him pull over. We saw him pull out of the session. So that might, as you said, he may slip down that order. We've got some really top fast guys lining up to second laps. But look at that for Ollie Parker. He's yellow in the first two sectors. This is not going to be the lap that he wants. We said you can gain 3/10, but actually it's Tommy Stevens who's showing the way. 9,000 slower in the first sector. He had a massive middle sector. This could set him up for a really strong lap. He's only 3/10 back from fourth place of Steve Lemond. What's it going to be? It's going to be provisional pole position for Tom Stevens in the BMW, ahead of Ollie Parker by 1.5 tenths of a second. A 2-minute 6/10 lap. That is going to be pole position. What a critical time to come up trumps on Max.
That was an important moment there for Tom Stevens, and he does snatch pole position away from Ollie Parker, who of course finished second place last time out, will start the race from second place. And it was a 1/10.5 to the good there for Stevens. Ollie was not able to keep the tyres for a second run, but Tom Stevens certainly was, and he found half a second on his previous best to put himself to the very top. And that's spectacular stuff from the BMW driver. Peter Davidson will still line up in third, but that is going to be your qualifying order, and it is going to be, it's actually Edward Jones at the very top. Oh, that's because I selected the wrong session there, ladies and gentlemen, on the overlay. Excuse me. But it is going to be, of course, Tom Stevens on that pole position. Actually, no, we're having an issue with that. So if we set the grid to then show the grid, it should then give us our order. Yes, it does. On the front row will be Tom Stevens and Ollie Parker. Then on row 2, Peter Davidson and Tim Bob, who of course set a purple first and was not able to carry on with the lap with an invalidation. Then it is Jack Lemond and Jennings who rounds out the third row of the grid. Row 4, we have George and of course Brown. Then on row 5, we have Gregory and Jones round out the top 10. Then it is Kyle Fenton and Edward Jones in 11th and 12th. 13th and 14th. On row 7, it is Lua and Diamond. On row 8, we have Joubert and Goad. For on row 9 is where we find George Pousland and the struggling David Wrench with a slight issue at the moment. And then finally, rounding off the field, the man not to set a lap time is the man second in the standings, Joe Juddy. So for Juddy and Wrench here, of course, Wrench has got that issue, but for Juddy as well, Thomas, the top two in the standings, not having a great evening so far.
Absolutely, but we've got 90 minutes, don't forget, in this race. There will be a pit stop. There will be chance to play around with the strategy, play around with the tyres you're going to use. And critically for these guys that you mentioned, we have a long way to go in this race. There's every chance we'll see them at the front of the race come the checkered flag. But for the moment, it's Ollie Parker and Tom Stevens, which will be the battle towards turn 1 that we're going to watch closely. We've got Tim Bob there. We've got Peter Davidson as well. We know those top 4 are super fast. And it looks like those issues continued for David Wrench. So it really could be these 4 that will be giving it large in the early goings.
Yep, it certainly will be. We'll see who will come out on top, waiting only another few more seconds until the command. Of course, here at Bahrain, it was meant to be Portimao, but we have had a change to the schedule. Portimao will be in a couple of weeks' time. We'll run you through the calendar after the race. And the drivers now get underway. It's a BMW and Porsche on the front row of the grid, followed by a BMW and Lexus on the second row. So, BMW occupy the inside line. It is Porsche and Lexus on the outside. And actually, it runs a little bit deeper than that as well, because of course, just behind Davidson on the grid will be in 5th spot. Jack Lemon. So that means 3 cars in a row for the BMWs. See what they're going to be able to do. Actually make that 4 cars in a row, because you've also got George there as well. Then it's broken up by Dave Gregory. These drivers are now waiting for the green flag commands. They are going to be rolling up to that start-finish line. All eyes on Tom Stevens' launch. Of course, the Porsche very good in acceleration. The BMW a bit quicker in a straight line. And we go racing. We are green here in Bahrain. It's a great start from Tom Stevens, who's just edging further ahead as we make the run down into turn 1 now. It'll be Parker on the outside, Stevens on the inside. It can certainly congest up into this first corner. There's some slight contact further back. I think that's for Lemond and also for Jennings, but it's Steven who survives the first corner ahead of Ollie Parker. Peter Davidson remains in third. The top 4 all unchanged, but here comes Davidson on the offensive against Ollie Parker as we make the run up the hill into turn 4. It's going to be late onto the brakes from the BMW on the inside line. He should get this move done, and he does get it done. Takes a bollard out in the process, but they are now actually still running side by side. Parker with a great exit. There's some slight contact between them. Gregory's gone round in the background, and Davidson has to back out on the move. Parker is able to hold on to that second place, but of course Davidson will keep fighting this one. Tim Bob is in the clear as well in 4th. It's Jack Lemon versus George for 5th and 6th. George has had a great start, at least up 1 place from ahead of Robert Jennings, who has dropped out the order slightly. But a great start there, Thomas, from Tom Stevens. He's 1.1 seconds clear already, and surviving a turn 1 scare. Has not looked back since on this opening tour.
It is exactly what he needed to do, as Joe Juddy and David Posland side by side. And there is a look at David Gregory. So he's gone off, I think, towards turn 10. That might be that he's gone off twice in the same lap. So a horrible start for David Gregory. He's far down the order behind Matt Jones's BMW, who I think also was involved somewhere in an incident. Here where we're looking at George Posland for Poundland Racing in the number 66 car. He's running 13th at the moment. These guys are starting to get down into a rhythm. Of course, it's hard to overtake on LMU when you've got a track like Bahrain where there are those overtaking opportunities. The hard thing is staying in the slipstream and using that to your advantage. Speaking of that, though, Chris Diamond and Carl Fenton side by side into the penultimate corner, the final corner of that. The BMW has the inside on the Ferrari, will take the move. So at the end of the first lap, you mentioned Tom Stevens has that fastest lap of the race now. 2:07.1 is the first lap. That will be the fastest lap. He's got a 1.3 second gap on Ollie Parker in the Porsche, and actually Peter Davidson's just gone through. So after the end of the first lap here in Bahrain, it is BMW 1-2.
It is BMW 1-2 as Davidson's got that move done. And look at that from David Wrench late on the brakes. He may have had an issue in qualifying, but he certainly had a flying start from 18th now up to 10th at the start of this race. A great opening lap time here from the championship leader. And now we're going to be heading up into turn 4 of Joe Juddy. Now trying to get a move done onto George Powsland, and he's got his way through as well. Or is Powsland going to be able to get the up and under, get the cutback on the Mustang as they now drive into turn 6? It is going to be Juddy who just holds on to that position at the front of the field. It is Stevens who is now 1.5 seconds clear from Davidson, then Parker who will just slot into a rhythm, you would think. The main driver to look out for, especially in that first sector, I think here, Thomas, will be Tim Bob. Has been fastest through that first sector all evening long, and where that's the part of the circuit where most of the attacking opportunities come, he could be a real threat to the cars in front.
Yeah, but even over the first lap, we're seeing here the gap between him and Ollie Parker was almost a second on the lap time, about 0.8 of a second. Was the gap that Parker opened up on the sole Lexus in the field tonight. We've got a couple of BMWs battling there for 5th position. That is Lemond and George. But as you mentioned then, Tim Bob, he's got decent pace. He's starting to close up on Ollie Parker actually on this second lap. So maybe the tyres being heated up by that Lexus just a bit quicker. We've got the top 2 still kind of running about 1.5 seconds between each other, as was the case on the opening lap. But Tim Bob here starting to close in on that 3rd place Ollie Parker. I'd imagine he'd be all over the gearbox of the Porsche for some time in this opening stint. It's really critical now as I'd say Le Mans going slightly wider through the final corner to just keep yourself in that rhythm. Start setting those lap times and try all you can to avoid being drawn into defensive maneuvers. As Le Mans is here, so he's going defensive on the inside at turn 1 from George. He's going to try the outside line, possibly the switchback. No, he'll stay on the outside line, and he'll have to end up conceding the position for the moment. He's going to have another run up towards turn 3. But for the moment then, it's pretty much a stalemate, but we've got this great battle on for 5th. The top 4 starting to spread out. The field starting to spread out. George goes defensive on the inside. Le Mans is still there. And they've got the other BMW of Brown and then Jennings is Ferrari behind them as well. This little battle pack could become quite a brilliant, entertaining fight over the next few minutes and laps, because at the moment Tom Stevens still holding a really nice advantage, though Peter Davidson is cutting into that by about half a second. I just saw it on the timing. This battle, though, is where our eyes lie. What can David Brown and George and Le Mans all do against one another in this 3-way, 4-way, 5-way fight now, as Matt Jones has joined to the back of it. So we've got a great battle shaping up here, all for 5th position.
Yeah, we certainly do indeed, and we'll see what is going to happen here. You can see the trainer cars make their way down the national pitch straight, of course, where they do the shorter circuit. That's a Ferrari in the background. That's Choubet, who nearly has gone around, and no, has gone around. I thought he might have saved it, but has gone around. And the Ferrari driver now drops down to 18th with just Dave Gregory behind, who we saw at the start of the race go straight on at turn 10 and also have a spin at turn 4. Davidson is flying at the moment. He's set a purple middle sector, and he is really starting to reel in Tom Stevens in front. Of course, Davidson unlucky last week with some damage after some contact with Joe Juddy, which took him out of contention of a second place finish, at the very least a podium. And he will be looking to try and make amends for that. Right, the Demons from last week maybe be our first different winner of the season, but this train goes all the way down to David Wrench. It's from 5th to 10th. And are we going to see anyone be brave enough for a move? You've got Brown, George and Lemond all in the, of course, BMW. Are we going to see a brave lunge here from Brown? We certainly are, as he looks to the inside. George will defend. He squeezes him across the apex. That's Jennings getting squeezed out as well, trying to take avoiding action. And here comes Brad Jones to take opportunity on this, but there's contact. And that is Jones going all the way around. Brad Jones, unfortunately, who tried to be opportunistic to get by onto Brown, and also George as well, was not able to capitalise, and David Wrench has got past not only on Jennings, but he might also be able to get past onto Brown in front of him too, as we now make our way into the S's of 6 and 7, and now make our way down into turn 8, the hairpin. This is certainly an opportunity for Wrench to have a lunge to the inside, and he certainly does take it, and he moves his way up into 7th place. Lovely stuff there from David Wrench, as Brown is now coming under pressure from Robert Jennings, but I don't see a move being made here from the Ferrari at the moment. But unfortunate there here, of course, Thomas, for Brad Jones, who tried to be opportunistic, saw the opportunity arise, but some slight contact there with George sent, of course, the BMW round.
Absolutely. I mean, it was absolutely fair to go for the move, but on that inside line in turn 1, got forced out wide. That opened up the concertina effect from those behind. Contact was made. It's very, very unfortunate. Also, Joe Bear there as well in the Ferrari. We saw them spinning round, so they're now all those 3 guys are in the bottom 3 having a bit of a fight amongst themselves. What we have got here though is Le Mans and George once again involved in action. Now the gap to 4th to Tim Mobb has opened up nearly 3.5 seconds or thereabouts on these 2. They're still fighting, but look who's in the background. We wondered whether David Wrench would fix these issues. He absolutely has. He's up into P7 inside 10 minutes. He started basically last, and now he's already chasing these guys down for 5th. His pace is incredible at the moment. It's a 2:02.1 for him on the first lap. We've got Juddy and Diamond, I think, going on the side by side. That's Jennings and Brown again. So Brown on the inside. Juddy trying to go around the outside in the Ferrari. Is it going to be like last time round? We'll have to wait and see. On the inside line, he will defend, squeezes the BMW all the way to the curbing, holds the position for now. So we've got a great battle here between the Ferraris. There's another battle going on between the other Ferrari. That is Carl Fenton and Chris Diamond, also involved in their own little battle for what is 11th place on the road at the moment. 10 minutes gone. It feels like 5 seconds, Max. And we've got a great battle here for 9th place as the top 4 continue to make this race their own.
They certainly do. It's all the squabbling that's coming out of Jack and George in 5th and 6th has caused this gap. They have made themselves have a huge hole to try and catch up to try and catch to that train. But if there's one man who could potentially catch that train, it's the man currently in 7th place. It is David Wrench, the man who has won the opening 4 rounds of the season and looking to make it a 5th from starting at the back of the field. He is flashing George to try and distract him down the straight and into the braking zone. He looked for a lunge, just was not brave enough on the brakes. It's not really a braking zone. You look for an overtake, but it certainly can offset your rival as he now makes his way up the hill and into turns 12 and 13. Are we going to see David Wrench go for a lunge here? No, we are not. Of course, it's still the 3 BMWs in this procession. The trio all now make their way down into the final couple of corners. Luckily for Wrench, the leaders haven't broken away too far, and there's still plenty of time left to go in this race for him to have an opportunity to fight back as we now go on board with the number 32 as he tries to get the up and under here onto George, and he might well have just got it as he now makes the run down the main straight. Is he just going to have enough straight line speed? Of course, there's slipstream from Jack onto George, and as they now all tuck into a row, making their way down the main straight, is George going to have to do. Attack is the best form of defense as Wrench will now look to the inside, just not able to get it done. Opens up the corner as we see as well. Actually, there, George cutting the corner ever so slightly. Gets a slow down and Wrench into the back of him. It's an easy move though for David Wrench. Cut the corner too much there, George. He took the apex off the corner and unfortunately picked up a slowdown.
Train dive, that would look like a classic NASCAR style bump and run. It wasn't. It was very much a slowdown for George. David Wrench couldn't really do anything to avoid that, unfortunately. He was right up, cooped up behind the gearbox of the blue and white BMW. Unfortunately, made contact with him. I wonder if that's going to have impacted his front aero. We'll have to wait and see whether that is going to give him any damage. He, at the moment, though, the task is to get past Le Mans here in the number 69 BMW. The inspired by that's actually inspired by a Tic Tac livery from 1992 in the DTM Championship. David Wrench is going to go all the way around the outside. In fact, that might have been Le Mans conceding the position, understanding that he was going to get held up by Le Mans if he tried to go too defensive on a man who was inevitably going to pass him given the pace difference. So we've got this train of GT3 cars, all from about 5th to about, well, really 5th to 10th, so fighting for the bottom half of the top 10 positions, all in tucked in like sardines. Here's the on board with Ryan Jennings in the purple sector racing PSR car, running 202s at the moment, so solid lap times here. He's got David Brown right up ahead of him with George in this train as well. You can see from this really cool onboard angle that David Wrench is already starting to ease into that gap to Tim Bob. Now we've got Joe Juddy who's going to go side by side, try and draw alongside towards the final corner. It's BMW against Ferrari, Ryan Jennings against Joe Juddy. The Ford, who's on the inside, and he's going to get the move done as Peter Davidson sets the fastest lap of the race.
Peter Davidson does set the fastest lap. That gap between himself and Tom Stevens around about 0.6 of a second. Lovely stuff there from Juddy to make his way through. And here comes Tim Bob on Ollie Parker. I said he could be scary in the first sector, and he certainly is delivering on that, at least on here of lap 6 of the race. He's up at the 3rd place, and Tim Bob in the Lexus, who of course picked up 3rd place last time out as well thanks to penalties for Joe Juddy, has now picked up a nice and easy move on Ollie Parker. That Porsche not seeming to do so well at the early stage of this one. As we look back at David Wrench as he's trying to close down onto the 2 in front. There's about 2.9 seconds, 3 seconds between Davidson and Tim Bob that the Lexus will have to try and eat into. And as well for Davidson, he's also all over the back of Stevens. So if these two start squabbling, it could certainly bring Tim Bob and Ollie Parker well and truly back into contention. Juddy's also been able to get past Brown. He's now going to look to try and get past George just in front of him. Then it's Jack Lamond as here we see Juddy to the inside heading into turns 9 and 10. Not able to get the move done. Of course, that Mustang very heavy on the front end means there's a lot of understeer generated through faster corners as well, and also into some of the slower ones. See down the straight where we know the Mustang is very, very quick indeed if he's going to be able to get this move done. He looks to the inside into turn 11, and George just holds off on that sweeping outside line, but runs a little bit wide, and that invites Juddy straight through. The door was wide open, and Juddy just walks straight through.
By Joe Juddy there, that's just classic opportunism. He's got Lemon now right in front of him. The Ford is moving. He's going to get on the inside as well. So 2 great corners for Joe Juddy here for the Royal Navy Esports Ford. He's got great lap times on both of these guys. He's going to go side by side. I think he's going to be repeating what we've seen all night tonight on the inside line. Concedes the position for the moment as Peter Davidson goes another couple of tenths faster than the previous lap. That's 3 tenths he's taken out of Tom Stevens. But here is Joe Juddy, who's going to have a slipstream on Le Mans, and George Biel is going to have a slipstream on him as well. There's this train of 5 cars who've been watching these guys all the way through. Never mind on the fastest lap, because David Wrench has just gone 4 tenths quicker than anybody else this race. The first sub to 2:01 lap time as Joe Juddy sends it down the inside on Jay Lemon and takes the position for the Royal Navy Esports car. Those BMWs are now involved in their own scrap. We've been seeing them all day so far. George Biel and Lemon are going to run almost side by side into the corner. George is thinking about it, but he's going to go for it as well on the inside line. Is there going to be contact? Well, George runs all the way over the curbing. He's going to stay side by side, not quite, as they run through the S's. He's also got the second Ford behind him as well. That is David Brown, I believe. So we've got this group of 4 cars, all feisty, all fighting for position. It's George Biel and Lemon at the moment. George is going to send it on the inside down to turn 10. That's kind of risky, though. On the inside, he's kept the space, given the space to his rival, and snuck through on the run down towards turn 10. That's going to expose her. That's going to expose the second BMW, who's now going defensive on the inside from the other Royal Navy Ford then. So on the run down towards turn 11, he's managed to hold the position for the moment, but it's still an intense battle pack. You've also got Ryan Jennings in this with the Ferrari, and Chris Thurman, who's on the end of this battle pack as well. This fight is going to last for some time, I think, Max.
It certainly is indeed. It is going to rage on all the way through the remainder of at least this opening stint, as Diamond is able to get past Jennings, who's had a mistake of his own. He's gone off the road at turn 11, maybe just a bit too trigger happy on the throttle, and at the front of the field as well, Peter Davidson all over the back here of Tom Stevenson. It's BMW versus BMW, and Stevens, who has led from start so far, of course, all the way to the end of what is now lap 8. And we'll see what is going to happen. Will Davidson go for the move? He's had the outright pace over the course of the last few laps. He's slowly been eating into that gap of the race leader, and he's late on the brakes into turn 1. Just not late enough. Has to slot back in behind. He's BMW compatriot. Of course, Tom Stevens is going to do everything he can to hold on to this race victory. Of course, I know him from other LMU leagues, and he is a very, very feisty driver indeed. He is someone who will fight tooth and nail to take a race victory. Let's see what he can deliver as we now make our way into the middle sector. And talking about the first sector as well, Tim Bob has just set the fastest first sector of anyone at this stage of the race, especially with the tyres starting to maybe hit the cliff slightly. Of course, they're going to slowly start wearing away, especially at a circuit like Bahrain with a lot of fast-flowing corners. To have a purple sector at this stage of the race, nearly 20 minutes in, quite unheard of.
Look at the space he's in at the moment. He's got 2.2 seconds ahead. He's got 2.5 seconds behind. This is a man in clear air who knows the ins and outs and intricacies of this Lexus, and he's using it to full effect right now. It's no surprise he is lapping faster than these top 2, and he's reeling them in just ever so slowly. The gap is threatening to delve under 2 seconds. We knew what he can do in qualifying. We also knew that perhaps this Lexus was an outsider for the win today, and this is exactly what he's doing. Look at the lap times. He's only 3/10 slower than Peter Davidson on his best lap, but he took just over 1.5 tenths out of Davidson on the last lap. So he's got the pace at the moment, and that is because he's in the clear air and he's using this to his full advantage. Ollie Parker, meanwhile, has dropped back and he's slowly being reeled in by David Wrench, who still has the fastest lap of the race. I think these top 5 are going to give us a lot of entertainment over the next few laps. We go yellow for Carl Fenton, and that's just a momentary one at least. Here is Le Mans. This battle still raging on between David Brown and Le Mans. And look at that. Tim Bob goes fastest, and then David Wrench goes fastest immediately. So we've got a battle. Not only have we got a battle for the lead and loads of battle positions, we've got a battle for the fastest lap on our hands, Max.
We certainly do indeed. Here comes Brown all over the back of Le Mans as we're now looking for the battle at 8th place at the moment. Brown has been the quicker car as of late. He's late onto the brakes, nearly into the back of the sister BMW. just have to stay behind, and we're seeing a lot of this drivers. They're quicker, they know they're quicker, but just in this dirty air ever so slightly, it does take a little bit of aero performance away, and you start to understeer. Why'd you lose that time? And it also means you just get bunched up behind the car in front. You can't be as late onto the brakes. If anything, you have to brake earlier in an avoidance of the car in front. Makes it that 10 times harder to get the overtake done. Poor Brownie needs a good exit out of 7 here if he wants a lunge into 8. Is he going to look for it? He certainly is going to look for the lunge. It's a tighter line from Le Mans to try and defend it. But Brown on the inside, as easy as you like, will get the place and move himself up into 8th place. That's a lovely move there from Brown as he now gets past Le Mans, who really was the cork in the bottle there. George has been able to break away from this pack. Diamond is now going to be next in line. I say that, he's had a moment outside out of turn 10, and that's allowed Robert Jennings straight back through. So Jennings, who of course made a mistake at this very corner a couple of laps ago, he's now got the position back because Diamond makes a mistake 1 corner earlier at the front of the field. Tom Stevens, I think, has had a little bit of a hurry up after that first scare from Davidson, as he is now half a second clear, with Tim Bob slowly reeling them both in.
Absolutely, just a little on Carl Fenton. He's actually gone into the pits there. You can see that on the broadcast graphics. So he's obviously had some kind of an issue. There he is, indeed, waiting. He's going to go into the garage, I think, as well. Nope, that's him done. So that could come into play later if we get a safety car. There's a pit stop already done for Carl Fenton now. I don't think that will take him all the way to the end of the race on the virtual energy standings, but it's something to watch nonetheless. We've also had the BMW of Lua down there as well, so he's had an incident of some kind, but Carl Fenton will resume this race a lap down then. Up ahead, the gap is still half a second between Tom Stevens and Peter Davidson. Now, Timbo hasn't really closed it in the way I thought he would on these top 2. He's still staying around 2 seconds back. A 2:15 his last lap, only 6/10 off his best. So he's still setting strong lap times, but it's unable at the moment to challenge the BMW 1-2. Now that could partially be due to the optimized nature of the BMW for this circuit, Max. As we watch him come through these next few corners, he'll be trying to get onto the back of this battle for the lead of Stevens and Davidson, because he'll be seeing every single movement they're making. As in the background there, we've got another move. It's a Jaws-like move from Wrench. You can almost imagine him going da 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 da. Someone get a Steven Spielberg score in his helmet, please. That'd be brilliant. David Wrench up to 4th place. He's the significant of that move. Ollie Parker moving down off the podium last time out at Fuji, but at the moment it's Tim Bob who is still trying to do all he can to get past Peter Davidson and Tom Stevens. There is David Wrench. He's got past Ollie Parker, already going about a second on him as well, as Parker slips into the 202s. That, I think, is an example of how the tired egg just cuts in and starts eating away at your grip levels throughout the second half of a stint. There is Joe Juddy in the best place of the Fords. That's in 6th place, as Ollie Parker can see everybody ahead of him. He's just got the agonization nature of having to deal with a tyre that is slowly starting to degrade. We're not half an hour into this race yet. It's got a while to just live on these slowly degrading tyres, Max. But when we do get the pit stops, I think we're going to see some really, really interesting things. And look at that. The top 3 go within 0.2 of each other. And David Wrench sets the fastest lap of the race by 0.2 of a second.
Wow, Wrench is absolutely flying at the moment. He, on that last lap, was around about a total of, I think, 7 tenths quicker than Tom Stevens, your race leader. He is absolutely flying at the moment, and Tom Stevens has just gone deep into turn 4, and that's allowed Peter Davidson to go straight through. So the mistake has been made from Stevens. Peter Davidson says, thank you very much. I'll take that position from you. It's as easy as taking candy from a baby. That was an opportunity left wide open from Davidson, and he does not need a second invitation. But look who's caught up to the back of them. It is Tim Bob in the Lexus, who is slowly creeping closer and closer as each lap ticks by. David Wrench, of course, will join this party. Of course, in only 11 laps has made it up from 18th to 4th and he's certainly looking like he is in prime position to try and hold on to 5 race victories in a row, but he still needs to get past the 3 cars in front, survive a pit window, and then bring it home. So for Wrench, he still has a lot of work to do if he wants to make it 5 from 5, but certainly would have been a lot more of an entertaining race for him than last time out in Fuji. But for Davidson there, Thomas, when you have an opportunity like that, you don't need a second chance. You don't need another opportunity to come your way, because you will take it. And that's exactly what Davidson's done. And now Stevens is the one on the back foot.
Absolutely. I mean, Stevens is still staying here and keeping him honest all he can throughout this first lap of being overtaken. Interesting to note, Tim Bob has suddenly closed that gap in by about a second. So I suggest whatever happened there, it slowed the both of them right up there. David Wrench is also just about 2 seconds off that top 3 as well. So these guys are coming together. They're closing in as we thought they would, as we knew they would. And David Wrench is lapping almost a second quicker than anybody else. In fact, he took 9/10 out of Peter Davidson on that lap. So he is very much the man to watch. Joe Jody also with a really strong time. He's taken almost 2 seconds out of Ollie Parker on that lap as well. These top 3 are going to converge on each other. And I think Tim Bob will also be trying to do that. Here's Tom Stevens then. He's got every chance to get back past Peter Davidson. He's not letting the man who also shares his name with the former Doctor Who actor get the better of him on this occasion. He's fighting his corner all the way in the Let's Drive Together Team D car, the BMW of Peter Davidson, the number 1, 2, 3 machine. It's going to be tight and tough for him to get back ahead. These BMWs, well, you think they're running basically identical power parameters, and the setup will, of course, be slightly different depending on these drivers' preferences. But Tom Stevens has got a lot of work to do. You can already see the tyres are almost halfway done, Max. So pit stop shortly coming in about 25 minutes time, 20 minutes time. We'll have a decently sized pit window. And if you can save your tyres for a couple of laps, you really should, because it means you can get a couple of laps fresher tyres for the second half of the stint. We've gone yellow for the moment as Goad, I presume, has some kind of an incident in the background. There he is, in fact, the number 28 Ford. Possibly just getting it wrong in turn 1. We've seen that a few times today, but cutting back to this is Lua, also in the Let's Drive BMW. That's Joe Bear as well, has gone off. Actually has pretty much the same tyres as everyone else in terms of tyre life. Both of them, I presume, have come together somewhere along the line. Here, though, is David Wrench. A couple of laps ago, that gap was 2.2 seconds. It's now 1.4. Tim Bob has gone from the hunter to the hunted within about the span of a lap. Ollie Parker is just leaving these guys behind. Well, going backwards, really, and leaving those guys behind. Interesting to note, David Wrench only has 48% of his time. In fact, that might be virtual energy, in fact. Forgive me there. I think that is virtual energy. He has only 47% of his virtual energy left. So he's only got about a lap. Well, I mean, it's tight, but it is interesting to note Tim Bob has about probably almost a lap less virtual energy than those around him in the Lexus. Maybe he's starting to conserve that, trying to extend his stint as long as he can, because these top 4 are starting to converge on one another. So Tom Stevens trying to get back up into P2. David Wrench is all over the back of these guys in the FSA Motorsport BMW. He's leaving everybody else in his dust. Absolutely. No real updates in terms of positions to inform you of at the moment. The two Joneses are running together nicely, as is George Fosland in 12th, David Gregory down in 15th as well. But up at the front of the field then, Tom Stevens and Peter Davidson and also Tim Bob, they've started to really converge on one another. Here is George Roseland with David Gregory, and I think that's Brad Jones in the Ford as well. And that is Joe Bear as well. So there's potentially a change of position on here for Lua and Joubert. They've both got pretty much identical energy readings. Lua on the inside, Joubert on the outside. They're going to stay side by side through the endurance section, through turns 5 and 6. Joubert's got his nose in front, and he will hold the position. Will he? No! Oh, no! Lua gets it all wrong, sticks his nose up inside. They're both going to spin off. I don't think that's going to bring out a safety car, but they've come together then through that tight, twisty section. I think it's happened before as well. We saw Joubert off in a similar fashion, or at least he rejoined the track last lap. Horrible moment for both of them. That's a horrible moment to continue their race. They've obviously been right at the back of the field pretty much since the start. They've had their own incidents that have got them down there. That will not help things at all, Max.
No, it certainly will not indeed, and that was unfortunate circumstances there for Lua and Joubert. That's tough racing, that's hard racing, but sometimes you just overstep that margin that little bit. And that is exactly what happens. Here's Tom Stevens, still behind Peter Davidson for that race lead. Tim Bobb is getting closer and closer. That gap now 7 tenths. The gap between him and David Wrench is now under a second. It is oh so close between this top 4. And Ollie Parker is falling into the clutches here of Joe Juddy, who's of course now up into 6th place. See what these drivers can deliver. Tom Stevens now on to the brakes. Now just try and see his way through and just follow through this middle sector. But of course here we've still got, I would say, here, Thomas, about another 10-11 laps before the pit window opens, before we get close on the virtual energy and the tyre front. So I'm expecting it to be around about the 30-minute mark, maybe the 40-minute mark, where we start to see pit stops be made. But it certainly does not bode well for Ollie Parker that Porsche is just eating its tyres alive.
Absolutely. He's obviously got tyre issues. In fact, Joe Juddy is right on the back of him. Look how much he's close to the corner of the Ford. So really, Ollie Parker is going backwards. He's obviously eaten too much into his tyres. I don't know if the Porsche is unkind on its tyres around here. Maybe the setup is particularly so at the moment. But he's doing all he can to defend from Joe Juddy at the moment. That top 4 you mentioned, they're now all within half a second of each other. David Wrench still has the fastest lap, of course, but I'm sure he'll be slowed up as these top 3. We know how much pace they all have. You mentioned it's going to be about 10 laps to the pit window. All I'm going to say to that is, if it's 10 more laps of that racing we're seeing from the top 4, I do not mind that one bit. Please give it to me. I'm loving this at the moment. Joe Juddy, I'm sure, is loving trying to strategize ways to get past Ollie Parker as they come round into the final corner. In fact, he's going to send it to the inside. Is he on the final corner on the Porsche? Yes, he will. Parker will try and cover off, but there's no use. Nothing stops the Ford, and it's rumbling V8, which, if you've heard it in real life, is something. He's now going to start weaving on the straight. Takes his defensive move incredibly early to try and hold the slipstream and just minimise the advantage the Porsche will have. Will stay on the inside line for turn 1, I'm sure, unless Parker will have an incredible move at the inside, a switchback. They're both going to go on the slam on the brakes into turn 1. Parker might look for the switchback. There's contact in the mid-corner that's slowing the Porsche up. It's allowed Joe Juddy to complete the move to move up to 5th position.
Yeah, lovely stuff there from Juddy. Brilliant defence for Parker for as long as he was able to, but he just falls short. And unfortunately for the Porsche, he now drops down another place. He's down to now 6th in this one. And of course, starting on the front row and dropping down to 6th already. It's just not got any pace at the moment inside that Porsche. It's not built for race setup. It was all now mainly, you would think, for, of course, quali setup. And for Parker, he's tried to hold on with it as best as he possibly can. And at the moment, 6th place is the highest he can muster. Luckily, he's got an 8-second advantage over George. That will be slowly eaten into, you would think, with the pace that Parker's been setting so far in this one. Not been too strong at all. But as we look further forward, we've got Davidson, Stevens, Bob, and David Wrench all in this train of cars. This quartet of drivers, as Davidson's actually been able to put away from Tom Stevens ever so slightly. And this might allow Tim Bobb to get an opportunity to make it a Lexus breaking into that top 2. Of course, he finished 3rd last time out. Did get a penalty for an instant, but then, of course, thanks to Joe Juddy getting a penalty, he was able to get that pace right back. And now as we're onto the brakes into the final corner, looking to make it back-to-back. Of course, podium finishes, and of course would love to pick a race win up and be our only other race winner this season, but he's got the only race winner this season breathing down his neck, and that is David Wrench. The BMW, of course, faster in a straight line. That is going to help the BMW and not really allow, of course, Tim Bobb much of an opportunity to defend down the straights, but to the inside goes David Wrench. Is late on the brakes. There's some slight contact. Wrench with a slide, and all that hard work has been undone, but luckily he has stayed around about half a second behind, but all that hard work to get right onto the back end, the spoiler of that Lexus, has just been unravelled, and for David Wrench he has to do it all over again, but luckily it also means for Tim Bobb, he's a bit more breathing space to push on into, because it lost him a little bit of time to Tom Stevens in front. So he can now just push a little bit harder once again and try and defend the position.
You say that, but actually Tom Stevens is starting to break away from this too. David Wrench, of course, we saw the contact in turn 1, and he's very much completely ignored it and gone straight back on the hunt. He's almost pushing Tim Bob through this next few couple of corners. He's incredibly had that into. Oh, we're good. We've got Ferrari. That's Robert Jennings has gone round. I think that's turn on off the run off turn 2. In fact, it's actually a run off turn 3. He's got going again, so he will not go safety car. But that is a horrible moment for the Ferrari, dipping his wheels onto the gravel there. Not quite sure how that happened. Maybe contact with Brad Jones. But for now, though, it's a difficult race for the moment. 30% on the virtual energy standing, so he's got a lot of work to do to try and get back up. I guess it's a replay. In fact, I think he might have just made contact. Possibly that was the BMW of Le Mans. Actually, he may have just made contact out of turn 4. Managed to get it going again. Here's another replay. Yes, it was Le Mans who came back on the track. Oh no. Jennings just collided. Well, they both collided really into each other. It's just that Jennings kind of came off far worse. There on the inside is the move, though, from David Wrench up to 3rd place. He made that mistake at turn 1. He will not require a second opportunity to get past the Lexus, who we knew was closing up, and now is down to 4th position. So a podium at the moment off the cards for Tim Bob, but he's going to try and send it down the inside possibly. He'll try and stay in this position for all it's worth, as we cut back to David Brown and George and also Le Mans. This three-way BMW fight is by no means going away. They've got 10 seconds back to Ollie Parker, who's very much in a world of his own right now, but they're all still fighting hungrily over each position, as Peter Davidson has almost a second of an advantage. I'm very interested now to see what Wrench can do against Tom Stevens. I think he's going to catch up to Peter Davidson, definitely. And I can't wait for that to happen. It should be a brilliant part of the race. Here, though, is this three-way fight for 7th place. I don't know whether they're catching Ollie Parker just yet. They're going to be slowing each other down with this battle going on at the moment, as they all try and adjust their braking zones to accommodate each other's presence. As Le Mans trying to get past Brown at the moment. They're still neck and neck through turns 5 and 6. This could be quite a battle to follow through the remainder of the 55 minutes we have here. So we're closing in on those pit stop times, as you mentioned earlier. Their lap times have dropped to around the 2:03 margin as these tyres also degrade, and the energy readings you can see there. Actually, David Brown has as low as 29%. So definitely, there's a little bit of variation with people saving or using more energy as and when. David Wrench actually has 29%, which is pretty good going for him at the moment, despite the fact he's been on a massive charge. He's already up on the back of Tom Stevens at the moment. Tim Bob is still watching on, and Peter Davidson, we knew that when he assumed the lead, he would break away. We didn't think maybe that he wouldn't break away by more than 9/10 of a second. Here is David Wrench, and he's going to send it down the inside. Not quite. He'll be going on the inside at turn 1. That I'd imagine he's going to have a good. All he needs is a good run through this final corner. Tom Stevens will have to do everything he possibly can to defend from David Wrench. But here comes the move then from the FSA Motorsport BMW. We're riding on board with him now. Behind you on this camera is Tim Bob. Ahead of you on this camera is Tom Stevens. Down into turn 1. Will Tom have the breathing room to deny Wrench on the inside, who goes for the inside? On the inside goes Wrench, and he'll make the move done as easy as it looks, as easy as it sounds. David Wrench up into P2 then with 53 minutes to go. It's taken him just over half an hour, and he's already in 2nd position. Actually, Tom Stevens is always trying to fight him back here, trying to get past him down back in turn 3. But I suggest it's only a handful of laps before we see David Wrench take on Peter Davidson.
Yeah, I think it is as well. That's a lovely move from David Wrench to get past Tom Stevens. It was late on the brakes. He saw the opportunity. He knew he could brake later. And David Wrench once again showing why he has been the class of the field so far this season. Of course, being the driver, the only driver to pick up race victories this season, winning the first 4 and is certainly looking to make it the first 5. We thought potentially with those issues we might find a new driver to pick up a race victory. David Wrench so far in this race, nearly 40 minutes in, has said otherwise. He has said, no, I am here to keep my crown. I am here to defend the streak. And I'll do everything in my power to make sure it lasts for as long as possible. Tom Stevens will now fall into the clutches potentially here of Tim Bob. So it could see the BMW fall off the podium. The pole sitter not going to do too well on that front. Of course, both drivers from the front row of the grid have really dropped off in performance and pace. Tom Stevens has been able to keep with the top 4. Ollie Parker, of course, dropped back quite substantially. But it does mean, of course, that for Tim Bob, he has an opportunity break onto that podium and break that 1-2-3 for the BMWs. Edward Jones has got past fellow Jones, Brad Jones, as they now run side by side, heading up through turn 12. Some slight contact made, I think, actually, but it is going to be Brad who wins out on that one. But of course, Edward will now fight this one back. He tried the up and under, tried to get the exit as we head down the hill into the final 2 corners. Flash of the lights as well from Edward against Brad as he looks to the inside, late onto the brakes, just not late enough. Got back in behind him as Robert Jennings now want to try and get back through with the pair of them after he now tries to recover, of course, from that incident he had with Jack Lamont. And at the back, Carl Fenton has gone round at, I believe that's turn 12 he's gone off at. So that's an unusual one there. And the front of the field, Davidson still close. Not actually as far ahead as he once was on David Wrench, because on that last lap, David Wrench here, Thomas, brought that gap down by half a second and nearly into the back of the sister BMW.
Absolutely. We wondered, as you said, what David Wrench's issues were, whether he'd get them fixed. I think he's got them fixed, don't you? Second position at the moment in just over 40 minutes for David Wrench. An incredible drive through the field, and now he's just 3/10 behind, barely a car length behind Peter Davidson, who's held the lead for so long. It's a question of whether David Wrench will be able to make that move and how long will Davidson be able to keep him behind. The BMWs are running 1-2 at the moment. They are running absolutely exemplary. It's been an exemplary drive from both of them so far in this race. You can look at the last laps, and it's actually Wrench who's taken half a second out of Davidson. His best lap is 4/10 better than Davidson. So FSA against driving together at the moment. It's they've got realistically the same amount of virgin energy. David Wrench almost thinking about it on the inside of the final corner, and he's gonna weave his tyres, probably just trying to preserve a bit of tyre life, get some clean air before he heads onto the front straight. So it can be a critical moment now. David Wrench is going to have a run to take the lead from Peter Davidson as they go down towards turn 1. 50 minutes remaining in this race. They've dropped Tom Stevens and Tim Bobb. It's about these two at the front. The two BMWs that are looking so strong today. Will there be a move from Peter Davidson? Not quite. He's going to stay behind. He's very much calculating exactly where to make this move on David Wrench. On Peter Davidson, sorry. There we are then, the two BMWs running together line astern. Davidson's going to try and do all he can to defend from Peter Wrench, from David Wrench here, who's going to have a look on the inside, maybe into turn 3. Once again, decides better of it. He's very much waiting to make the right move here, is the 32 BMW. And Davidson, for what it's worth, he's placing his car in all the right places to keep him behind. But I'd suggest it's going to be a bit of an inevitable battle between these two. David Wrench has always had the pace all day long. He's had the pace all race long. I believe he's one of the only men to set the time on a sub 2-minute lap. And as Peter Davidson has led this race for so long, after getting ahead of Tom Stevens early on, he may yet be able to concede it in a few corners' time. We'll have to wait and see. He's doing all he needs to do, though. He's doing a great job defending his P1 from David Wrench at the moment, who's going to have another chance. I think he's going to look to set it up towards down towards the final corner. Riding on board with him at the moment then. Here is the look on board to Peter Davidson ahead. We're going to watch these lines. He's taking a slightly wider one in, and then a slightly sharper one up towards the curbing. That might have saved him a bit of time as he gets that clean air. That's what he's looking for at the moment. He needs to preserve his tyres. He needs to preserve his virtual energy. So it's a matter of fuel saving almost, and then also saving those tyres as long as you can. That's going to be a huge factor in this race, as it is in any Le Mans Ultimate race. Once again then, same deal as last lap. He's got in the slipstream of Peter Davidson. He's going to have a run down towards the first corner, I think, because he's not going to go for it here. Davidson might just be getting the exits that he needs at the moment. But here we go then. Davidson compromises him massively on his final exit. He might even be pitting. Indeed, he is. He is pitting. And David Wrench will take that lead from Tom Stevens. So, as Peter Davidson goes into his first pit stop then, it is David Wrench that leads the motor race. Leads round 5 of the DMEL LMU Championship and LMGT3. Here we go then. The first pit stop really of the front runners, and it's Peter Davidson's Max.
Yes, a very early pit stop there from Peter Davidson, but we saw this from him last time out. I'll let you know how quick should I say, this pit stop is. Of course, for David Wrench, he's out front. He is absolutely flying at the moment. And it looks like it is going to be around about a 40-second stop for Peter Davidson. Ollie Parker also into the pit lane alongside Brown as well. It nearing the end of this pit stop here. He's got the full tank of energy. He's just going to be changing those tyres, and he exits the pit lane now. 39 seconds is how long that pit stop was there for Peter Davidson. So that is key information we need to look out for. Ollie Parker was only 33 seconds, so he's actually caught a bit of time there, actually. About 6 seconds or so to Peter Davidson. But of course now, Thomas, when do Wrench, Stevens and Tim Bob come in, and do they run their energy all the way to the wire, or are the tyres just giving out that little bit too much for them to extend this stint even further?
Well, I think the logical thing to do is just to run that virtual energy tank right down to the wire, as you said. We know that Peter Davidson has dropped to 12th on the road. He's in clear air, which is good for him. That might have been the prevailing factor in such an early pit stop. He's down in 12th. He's got about 3.5 seconds ahead. And what that also is going to do for him is it means he's going to basically undercut everyone ahead of him. So when we come back around, and the pit stop cycle is completed, he should be back up the order. And I guess what he's thinking is if he can take the pit stop early, get off those used tyres. Yes, he's going to have a deficit to the other guys towards the end of the race, but what he's going to have now is everybody pitting in front of him, allowing him to just sail through, potentially into the lead. We're going to have to watch and see what the lap times are. At the moment for David Wrench, they are very good lap times, as they are for Tom Stevens and Tim Bob, who are very much still involved in that lead battle. I think it would have been a tyre wear decision for Peter Davidson then. Here he is then running in 12th on those fresh tyres, on a fresh tank of fuel. 45 minutes will be more than enough for him to get to the end on. It's not a case of back timing where he's going to try and end on the most efficient strategy possible and run that virtual energy tanker right down to the wire at the end of the race, which is what these guys are doing at the moment. They're going as long as they can. David Wrench just trying to establish as much of a gap as he can before he does end up pitting, because every single second matters, especially when it comes to pits. Obviously, when it comes to outlaps, I imagine these guys are all going to either do whatever Wrench doesn't do, or they're going to do the same and try and catch him back up on that way. We've got Joe Dudley up to 4th, as well as Peter Davidson has entered the pits. His last lap time 3 minutes, so that's kind of an indication of how much time you're losing in the pit stops. Now it would have been slightly more for Peter Davidson because he came in early, so everybody else is going to have a slightly longer stop because they've got to fill up their fuel tank more. And well, I think we'll be seeing full tyre changes for everybody. You could possibly take 2 tyres. You can see it where they do run 2 tyres in the real life World Endurance Championship and double stint them. It's a tall order. And in a 90-minute sprint race, I suggest it's probably not the thing to do. You want to have as much grip as possible for every single corner you attack. At the moment, though, Peter Davidson's still running in 12th place. He's got David Gregory ahead of him, and then Robert Jennings is in 10th place. Here is the leaders. Wrench going another lap longer on his stint. I think he can probably do another 2 laps, maybe 3 if he really extends it before he needs to pit. Probably the same for Tom Stevens and Tim Bob as well, who are still very much within keeping Wrench within their sights. But for now, it's just a matter of waiting for this pit strategy to make itself unfold and make itself known, Max.
Yeah, it certainly is indeed. And these guys are certainly going to be running their energy all the way down to the wire. I think Tim Bob's going to come in at the end of this lap. He's only got 4% of energy left to go, and you lose about 4% a lap. So for him, he'll come in ever so shortly. Peter Davidson will keep an eye on what this lap currently tracking onto. I can tell you he sectors. It is a 36.4 in the first sector, so about a 10th down on David Wrench, at a 54.7 in the middle. Of course, we're still going to be waiting there for David Wrench's lap time, as Robert Jennings is going side by side with Brad Jones, and Brad Jones makes his way through as Jennings has actually come into the pit lane, and I think that's a retirement from the race here from Jennings. So our first retirement is the Ferrari man, and unfortunately for him, he will now drop down throughout the field, and that is going to be his race over and done with. Of course, top 15 score points. He was in that top 15. Uses better of it, and a 2-minute 1.5 on that last lap. Even though he's came in for fresh tyres and fuel here, Thomas, 0.2 slower on that last lap was Peter Davidson to David Wrench, and on this lap, Wrench is still tracking faster than what that last lap was for Davidson. So struggling a bit here, and I think Davidson might have come in a bit too soon.
Well, possibly. I think also it could just be a tyre warming issue. Maybe Davidson's just having a bit more difficulty heating up those tyres. You've got to remember that while these mediums for the front runners are going to be, they'll be degrading, they'll also be nice and warm and lovely and cozy down there. So they're going to have more grip. As I think we'll be seeing Tim Bob peel into the pits. In fact, we're seeing, I think, the entire front three peel into the pits. Yes, we are. No, we're not. So Tom Stevens will go on one more lap. But David Wrench and Tim Bob are in to make their pit stops. Also, when I can see, I think that is Joe Juddy. That indeed is Joe Juddy. So the second, third, and fourth all making their pit stops. There's a Ferrari. I think that is the Ferrari of Carl Fenton back in the pit lane. Indeed it is. He's 2 laps down now. So we'll have to wait and see what these guys do for their pit stops. Whether it's just fuel, whether they take tyres, because, you take 2 tyres, maybe that might be the way to go, as Peter Davidson is continuing to run around. He's still doing 2:01, which is a really good lap time, but he just hasn't seemed to been able to unlock those final few attempts that will put him on par with the likes of Wrench and Stevens and Tim Bob as well, who we've been seeing. Here is David Wrench, still that best lap of 2:02.7 dead, which is the fastest lap of the race. With 40 minutes to go. You were bang on the money, Max. It's for 40 minutes to go, and we've got these pit stops coming now. It's a question now of where will Peter Davidson emerge in relation to the front runners.
Certainly will, and he's just making his way down the main straight. It was a longer stop there from David Wrench, who I think has put on a fresh set of tyres, and Peter Davidson is well clear. We thought he may have got the calculations wrong, but I don't think he took a fresh set of boots, because his pit stop was 10 seconds faster. So for David Wrench, he's got a lot of work to do, as here comes Ollie Parker to get past Joe Juddy. Tim Bob has lost out in all this pit stop malarkey as well, because he's now behind Joe Juddy, who himself had a quicker pit stop than the likes of Wrench and Tim Bob. So maybe that fresh set of tyres really coming into play. But Ollie Parker now up to a net 3rd place, you would think, with Stevens still yet to come into pit lane. He will come into the pit lane within the next couple of corners. He has only got 1% of energy remaining. But Peter Davidson has now got a lovely 8-second advantage over David Wrench, which David Wrench will have to eat into, but we know how fast David Wrench is, and especially now being stuck behind Dave Gregory, that's not going to do Davidson any well of good at all. He needs to get by now.
He's going to be in the slipstream. I think we'll have to have him wait for Gregory to let him by. You can see the second, third, and fourth place cars really in the background, or net second, third, and fourth place cars, as indeed Peter Davidson does go by David Gregory in the Ford there. So I think that's essentially putting a lap on the Ford, because of course Gregory will need to pit again before the end of this race. But yes, Peter Davidson, so he has about 8 seconds. He said it's 7.5 now because of the interruption from the Ford. The key thing now is how does this affect Tom Stevens? Well, he pitted a lap later. We've effectively had 3 strategies here. The question is, what does he do with his tyres? Now, he's just come out the pit stop, so I think he's going to retain the lead of this race. Will he? There's someone coming across the line. That might be the BMW, but no, I think that is going to be Tom Stevens, who will retain the lead of the motor race then. In fact, there is the gap. So we had Peter Davidson, who is up into 2nd place, having stopped earlier, having stopped a lap. 2 laps later, it is Tom Stevens who retains the lead. He's taken it back 40 minutes or so to survive now, because we suspect David Wrench is on the faster tyre set. He's got 8 seconds to make up over 40 minutes. Now, that's going to be, I'd say that's definitely doable. Last lap 3:13, that would definitely suggest he's taken a full set of tyres. And I would suggest that Davidson Stevens have done the opposite. They've either gone for no tyres at all, or they've gone for a 2 tyres, possibly those being on the left-hand side. They do more of the work round this track. We'll have to wait and see how this all lines up though. But we know the gap, we know the state of play. It is BMW 123, it is Tom Stevens from Peter Davidson from David Wrench, and they're all going to start to converge on one another as the lap times trickle in. Drive through for Joe Juddy as well, so that is certainly something to watch out for. He'll have to re-enter the pit lane, and that will promote Ollie Parker and Tim Bob. I don't know what happened under Tim Bob's pit stop for him to drop down to 6th place, but he is certainly there. And they'll gain a position thanks to Joe Juddy's mishap in the pits. But as we look to the man that has set this race alight, David Wrench, he knows the score. He knows what he needs to do. He actually has an energy advantage. Both of he and Peter Davidson have an energy advantage on Tom Stevens. And now it's just about waiting to see who can respond and who can set the quicker lap times and who can take charge of the race.
Yeah, it certainly is. As of course, for Tom Stevens, as you can see, he is heavily under-fueled on the energy. He's got 75% compared to the 80% of Davidson and the 87% of David Wrench. He's gone for a rogue strategy, something very robust indeed. Be interesting to see how he holds on to this one. So the gap currently between the top three, 7.6 seconds. It was 2:57 last time round for Tom Stevens, of course, because he came into the pit lane. It was 2:02 from Peter Davidson. For David Wrench, it was a 2:06, the fastest lap of this race. And that shows just how quick he truly is. Juddy, of course, does have a drive-through penalty, so he'll come and serve that ever so shortly. And of course for Juddy, that's not going to do his championship chances any world of good, especially with David Wrench now in front of him, and will be in front of him by quite a few places. As Joe Juddy, I think, has made a mistake. He has gone round on the exit of turn 1, and that's put more pain to his race. Not only picking up the drive-through, but now going round. That's allowed Ollie Parker and Tim Bob through, and Tim Bob is all over the back of the Porsche. We've seen this happen once before, and are we going to see the Porsche drop behind the Lexus once again here?
That is the question. I think Ollie Parker, definitely in the earlier part of this race, we saw how he perhaps struggled on the Porsche, on the way it used its tyres. Tim Bob now is trying to do all he can to recover from whatever happened in the pit stops. I'd suspect that maybe it was just a longer stop than his rivals, and that's probably why he's so far down the order, because on his pit entry he looked absolutely fine. No, there was nothing else to indicate that he had some kind of a mistake at any point during his in-lap. I think it was just the pit strategy not quite working out for him, going to the outside line of Ollie Parker, trying the ambitious move there, maybe wanting the switchback, but he was too far alongside the Porsche to really go for it now. Joe Juddy, I think, is down in 6th, so he's going to serve that drive-through penalty. I'd suggest probably this lap, because it doesn't really affect anyone else. He's not going to be in the fight for the top 5, I don't think, towards the end of this one. Another little look at the inside from Tim Bob. Remember, these two are fighting for 4th place, and they want to make sure they can try and get back on the podium, and they've of course, we're both on the podium last time out, and they'll be wanting to return there once again. That gap, though, Peter Davidson, is now 4.8 to Tom Stevens, so those two are coming together quite nicely. David Wrench, that gap started at 8 seconds. It's now down to 6.5, and Ollie Parker, at the moment, is running pretty neatly as well. Still trying to defend from Tim Bob, who's going to have a good run out of the final corner, possibly. He's going to be in the slipstream as David Wrench goes 2 tenths faster on that next lap. So he's still setting fastest laps. He's definitely got the pace on everyone else. Side by side here now between Tim Bob and Ollie Parker. Side by side between the Lexus and the Porsche. Bob's got the inside. I suggest he's going to get this move done in turn 1. What can Ollie Parker do? Is off the squirms under braking, goes to Lexus, but he holds on to the position, and Tim Bob up into 4th place, Max.
Lovely stuff there from Tim Bob to get the move done at long last on Ollie Parker. And he is now, of course, up into P4, and that's probably where this battle will stay, because they've got a 7-second gap to David Wrench in front of him. Diamond has been able to get past Juddy, who, of course, has just served his drive-through penalty, and he's going to come out in 8th place, is the Ford driver. But, of course, here for Tom Stevens, under-fueled, he might have to fuel save slightly, but on that last lap was 3 tenths slower than Peter Davidson, and a whopping 1.6 seconds slower than David Wrench. You just see enter the background as he exits out of turn 10. Currently that gap 10.4 seconds between the two BMWs, the race leader and the man in 3rd. But of course, the saving grace here for Tom Stevens as well, even though the man in 2nd place is catching of Peter Davidson here, Thomas, it's the fact that Davidson, being in 2nd place, gives him that little extra shield from David Wrench behind. So if they start squabbling, gives him that opportunity to build a gap, just to keep and hang on to that race lead.
And indeed, if he needs to save some energy towards the end, that would be a massive, massive help. You can see both BMWs there on the same screen. So David Wrench is closing all the time on Peter Davidson. I think it'll take a while before they manage to get back up to close up on each other. In fact, actually, that gap has kind of increased. It's about 10 seconds or so from Tom Stevens to the man we're all watching, David Wrench. and actually Tim Bobby's about a further 8.6 back. So certainly the Lexus man has not had the best of days here. Got past Ollie Parker though, which is good for him. And now we're looking at Peter Davidson, who is trying all he can to close up on Tom Stevens. He's actually being successful because that gap is now coming down to 3.7 seconds. But also, as you said, the gap is coming down to David Rent. So if those two kind of start fighting, then Tom Stevens would be in a massive advantage. The real critical question is, I think, going to be, are they going to converge together, or are we going to see a battle for second or third? And really, this could be where Tom Stevens' strategy may be paying off, because he's got half an hour and 3.6 seconds to defend from, as Brad Jones gets a drive-through penalty.
Oh, unfortunately there for Brad Jones, that's another one coming victim of track limits. Very easy to do around this circuit. All it takes is running that little bit further wide, and you've picked up a track limit penalty. But, of course, George has now been able to get past Brad Jones, because he has just come into the pit lane. I thought he'd a bit further round on the circuit. As that is Tom Stevens navigating his way past Powsland, now a lap down himself. And we'll see that gap between Peter Davidson and Tom Stevens is now down to 3.2 seconds. It is closing very quickly. Of course, Stevens would have been hampered there by Powsland. But it does mean that Davidson still really bringing this one down. And I do believe here as well, Thomas, that Stevens is fuel saving, because he's around about a second slower a lap. And it's not really what he was setting too much before he came into the pit lane. He was around the mid to high 2-minute ones when he came into the pits, but now he's in the low 2-minute twos. So I think there is a big fuel save going on here from Stevens. He's trying his best, but it really is bringing the others into contention.
Absolutely, Tom Stevens then, this strategy, well, it's a question of whether it's going to work out or not. You can see there, 7/10 he just lost on Peter Davidson on that lap, and 1.1 seconds on David Wrench. So it's a bold strategy. Let's see if it's going to work off for him. Certainly, I think it's hard to say, because the gap's coming down at a rate where you'd have to question whether or not he's going to get caught under the fuel saving strategy. Why not? It made sense to go for it, because you've got to do something different. Otherwise perhaps you're not going to beat David Wrench. You've got to do something different to beat this guy. We know that. We've seen how dominant he has been in the first 4 rounds of this championship. He's looking set, if he can have the pace within the final half an hour, to take another win. It's the gap's hovering around 5 seconds at the moment. The gap's also hovering around 2.7 or 3 or thereabouts for Peter Davidson. So they're both kind of closing in on each other, as we've been seeing so far. Just looking further down the order, I think that's Brad Jones and David Gregory fighting for 12th position, and also you can see on your timing screens the other Jones and Joe Juddy fighting for 5th. Joe Juddy having served his drive-through penalty now. There's a great battle between him and Chris Diamond also involved in that fight. They're 25 seconds back from Ollie Parker, whose 5th place looks, I'd say, rather secure towards the end of this one. He can kind of just chill out, because 25 seconds, you're not going to catch that unless the Porsche man makes a mistake. But here is David Renton. Last lap was just 2/10 off of his fastest. The consistency of this man is absolutely unreal. The gap is coming down by another second a lap, and we are just simply waiting now for fireworks to go off here in Bahrain.
Yes, we certainly are. And for Peter Davidson, I think he's just had to navigate his way past Powsland. Yes, he has. So that's another car that's another car that has just passed the, of course, number 66 machine. David Wrench will surely follow through soon, who's just set a new fastest lap of this race. He would attempt faster this time around on his fastest lap, a 2-minute 3. We are close to breaking that 2-minute barrier. That will be something if David Wrench is able to do that. Juddy's able to make his way past on Chris Diamond, so he's now back up into 6th place in this one. But Diamond will, of course, try and fight this one back, both in the Mustang, so they're both in the same car. It's all down to car setup. Oh, and Diamond nearly into the back of Juddy under braking, but just avoids the sister Ford and has to then slot back into the train. But that's put Edward Jones all over the back of him. But of course, only, I would say, 3 laps ago, Thomas, we were talking about David Wrench being 10 seconds behind. It's now 5.9. That gap between Wrench and Stevens. He is flying at the moment. But then, of course, if more traffic comes their way, as we'll quickly bring up the track map to see exactly where they are and where the closest car is in front. They actually have a lot less, no more traffic really, I would say, for the remainder of the race unless something drastic happens. It's really now just a game of Stevens trying to hold on, trying to save that fuel, and his energy levels are starting to get closer to Peter Davidson's than they were when he came out of the pit lane. So I think this strategy on the fuel saving front will get him to the end, but it's certainly going to be a struggle to get to the end as the race leader.
Well, actually, as he said, he's going to kind of bring in that gap back in line with the rest of the field. Whether that was his strategy to go for the fuel save in the first half of the stint and then push in the second half when he's saved enough to be able to just go for it, that might actually be what he's doing here. And if he can make it work and save enough by the time that Davidson catches him and by the time that Wrench catches both of them, he'll be in good stead, I think, because he has good pace compared to Peter Davidson. But the question I keep asking is, where on earth does David Wrench keep finding the pace from? He keeps setting fastest laps on his second stint. And yes, he's on a full set of new tyres, so it's essentially in the prime of that kind of quartet of tyres life. But it's so impressive to me how he keeps setting fastest lap after fastest lap in this race. The gap's down to about 5.5 seconds overall to Tom Stevens, who is now dealing with a gap of around 2 to Peter Davidson. These two are going to come together definitely in the next few laps. Looking down further down the order, you've got a battle between Lua and Joubert, who've of course not had the easiest of races, but it's the sister car of Peter Davidson trying to fight over 14th with the Ferrari. We also have Brad Jones and Chris Diamond now dueling for 7th on the road. Joe Juddy has made his escape from those two. So battles are going on all over the track. You can see the rest of them on your screen now. Here is Brad Jones trying to get past Chris Diamond. So it's Ford against BMW this time. Jones, we've seen him a lot earlier in the earlier race. He's got 21 seconds on George BL at the moment, so he's not under pressure at all. He can focus fully on catching the Ford of Chris Diamond here in the number 190 car. So whether this move will happen and when it will happen, you can see below their lap times were almost identical last time round. It was a gap of just 1.5 tenths to the favour of Jones here in the Royal Navy Esports car, going up against Black Box Racing as well. So this battle was looking quite interesting. You can see as well at the front of the field, Peter Davidson closing all the time on Tom Stevens. I'm sure we'll return to that, but in the moment I'm interested in this battle between Chris Diamond and Jones, who is starting to close up the last lap. You can see there, they were 0.5 tenth away from each other in terms of their pace. These guys are incredibly close. They should be, by the looks of things, running like this all the way to the end with a yellow flag somewhere. That is for George Powersland because he's gone round. That is drama there for George. Not had the easiest of races. He's a lap down already. And yeah, getting it all wrong towards turn 4, or turn 3 actually. He looks like he's pulling over as well on the track. Here is the battle between Lua and Joubert. So it's the sister car of Driving Together Racing D. And Joubert opting to use the JMW livery from the European Le Mans Series this time round. So these two are fighting over 14s, but it'll sure be quite entertaining for these two. I always say the quote is, the cars are fictional, but the racing is real. That's attributed to one Jimmy Broadbent, who knows all too well the meaning of that phrase. But it's the Joubert trying to defend from Lua here in the BMW. He's doing a decent enough job. He's placing it where he needs to. Actually, the Ferrari lost his last lap time to track limit, so we don't actually know what the time was. We do know his fast lap was 3 tenths slower than Lua, and he's now going all over the place to try and defend from the BMW, which he's of course perfectly entitled to do. Fastest lap of 2:03.1 for Lua's BMW, who's now going to send it on the inside. There's nothing that Joubert can do. 14th place, nice and wrapped up with a bow tie for the BMW. Then he's slotted up into 14th. He's got 13 seconds to David Gregory, so I'd suggest that's really all he can do with 22 minutes to go, just past 8 o'clock in the sim time. But this battle looks, we'll watch it for a moment and see if Lua or Joubert can do anything, but I'd suggest the gap that Lua has, Max, at the moment is good enough for him to stay ahead.
It should be enough for him to stay ahead, but at the front of the field, that gap is nearly under a second. Stevens, Davidson and Wrench. That gap separating the three is under 3 seconds. And we'll see what the BMW trio will now muster up. Stevens on that last lap was able to finally break below that 2-minute 2 barrier, and he's done it again. I think he can now start to push that little bit harder, but the thing is, he's still half a second slower than, of course, Peter Davidson, who in turn is still 8/10 slower than David Wrench. So even though Peter Davidson gains on Tom Stevens, David Wrench is gaining even more, and he's getting closer to the back of Davidson, so he needs to get past Tom Stevens and use Stevens somewhat as a rear gunner, at least for a lap, to then give him an opportunity to hold on to the race lead. Dave Gregory has just brought out a yellow flag as he spun on the exit of turn 10. We have lost George Powsland, who has retired from the race. That means Jubei is going to be the last driver scoring a point. Of course, top 15 do score the points. And for Craig Lure, he's now been able to make his way through onto Gregory as he recovers from that spin. Look at this now. Peter Davidson, 7/10 behind on Tom Stevens. He's got the pace in hand, he certainly does. But there is one thing in motorsports, in the wise words of Murray Walker, it's one thing to catch, it's another to overtake. Once you get onto the back of the car in front, it does make things 10 times harder. It's all well chasing the objective, but getting past the objective and keeping that pace up as well, a whole nother story. But for Tom Stevens, he's doing everything he can. He tried the riskiest strategy. He underfueled the car, had to fuel save for quite some time, and he's slowly bringing that pace back up to speed. 20 minutes and 22 seconds to go. We're going to have about another 10 more laps of things here tonight. And it's all down to the wire as the top three are separated by 1.6 seconds.
Absolutely. Stevens to try and just hold on to the whatever gap he can over Peter Davidson, who is doing exactly the same thing over David Wrench. We kind of touted this as what would happen about an hour ago almost, that these three would come together towards the end. We knew the BMW was the strongest car around here. We knew these three were going to be some of the strongest drivers around here. And the prophecy we told is coming true. It is Stevens from Davidson from Wrench. It has been for quite some time, but now that is all up in the air. That is all up on the tarmac for dispute, as Stevens has half a second to the good of Peter Davidson, who is basically the same on David Wrench. These three finally coming together then. It's going to be a great battle, I'm sure, for the final 20 minutes. Let's hope it extends to the final runs of the flag. As looking at those last lap times, Davidson actually outdid Stevens by about 0.3 of a second there, so he's still gaining. I'd suggest the move is to come quite soon, riding on board with Peter here in the BMW of Ever Driving Together Racing G. He's got Tom Stevens, you can see there all over the back of him, takes a tighter line up in turn 9. That could actually give him a great opportunity to get up the inside. We know these three are so close. We know these three what they can do because they've shown it all night. Which is just really a matter of who's going to get the run as Tom Stevens goes slightly wide. That could compromise him out of turn 10. We're going to go on board now with Peter Davidson, who will switch it up and try and get the slipstream up towards turn 11. Not going to happen through that turn of S's then. He'll stay behind and do everything he can to get the best run possible out towards the final run to the flag and the final run to the final corner as David Wrench still has the fastest lap. Let's not forget, he's still got the pace, and he's actually, I think, well, it's almost take your pick and take your guess as David Wrench. Look how close he gets to Peter Davidson there through the final corner. It's take your pick for who overtakes who first, Max.
It certainly is, and I think it's going to be David Wrench here onto Peter Davidson into the final corner as he now looks to the inside. David Wrench might just be able to take second place away, but no, slots back into the train, looks for the exit. Davidson with a tighter line on entry. That's going to compromise his exit ever so slightly and might just give Wrench the opportunity to make his favourite move of the evening. Down into turn 1, late on the brakes, so he loves to chuck it to the inside, but Davidson will not give this one up without a fight, you would not think, especially with a race win on the cards. He will look to the inside. He squeezes Wrench slightly, but not enough. Wrench finds the gap down the inside, and he will take that position away from Peter Davidson. The championship leader, the man who has won the opening 4 rounds of the season, is staring at a potential 5th. Tom Stevens is the only object in his way to keep the perfect streak on going, and he's got 17 minutes to get the move done, and he needs to get it done cleanly as well, because of course he can't afford any contact, because if they make contact, that then opens the door for Peter Davidson. So for David Wrench, he's got the pace, he has got the time, he just needs to be patient to make his way through on Tom Stevens. He's done it once, he can do it again. And will Tom crumble under the pressure? As we look now into, of course, turn 10. Drive through for Tom Stevens for track limits. That changes everything. Tom Stevens has picked up a drive-through penalty, and that will now bring an end to his race-winning chances. And through goes David Wrench into turn 11. The fifth race win in a row has just fallen perfectly into the driver of the number 32's lap. And for Tom Stevens, he loses the race victory in the most heartbreaking circumstances possible. A drive-through penalty for the BMW driver. And for Tom Stevens, it all falls apart right at the very end when you think he may just be able to hold on, or at least give Wrench a run for his money for that race victory. It has unfortunately all come to nothing, and it will serve that drive-through penalty now. But for David Wrench, the fifth win might have just fell into his lap. He needs to keep it clean, though, on the track limits and make sure he don't make the same mistake. But disaster there for Tom Stevens, and sheer delight for David Wrench, who now needs to hold on from Peter Davidson for another 15.5 minutes and bring this one home. Will he be able to do it? I think we may have unfortunately lost Thomas, as we now see David Wrench make his way through the S section of turns 5, 6 and 7. Now, of course, just try and hold on to this race lead. He needs to just bring this one home. He's got the pace over Peter Davidson. We know that. He was able to catch and then overtake. Just needs to try and now bring this one home with no mistakes. And he's now 1.1 seconds clear. How much is that gap going to extend? Will it extend? And for David Wrench is all now a perfect opportunity for him to keep the streak alive, the perfect streak. Of course, in an 8-round calendar, to win the opening 5, you pretty much have one hand on the trophy. And for David Wrench, he has certainly done just that. Now, look at Peter Davidson. Tries to claw back something against the, of course, sister car. And for Davidson, he is really just trying to hold on for dear life. At least try put some pressure onto David Wrench. All of this as well also promotes Tim Bob up onto the podium places. And we also have Ollie Parker versus Tom Stevens now. Of course, Stevens on the recovery drive. Going to be interesting to see what he can deliver. And of course, once he gets past Ollie Parker, there's an 11-second gap to Tim Bob in front. So I believe for Stevens, the best now he can get is a 4th place finish, and it'll be heartbreak for him because a podium was certainly on the cards, a top 3 finish, as Jones has brought out a yellow flag. And there he goes to the inside of Ollie Parker. But it will be a very frustrating 4th place finish for Tom Stevens. He now needs to keep it clean on the track limits, and hopefully he'll make it to the end on the energy front, because we now, of course, just bring that up for you. And he has got a total of 31% left, where others around him have around about 38%. I think he'll have enough with 12 minutes to go to take it to the end, but if he has to make a pit stop, that will certainly add more salt into the wounds. The gap at the front of the field has stayed around 1.2 seconds. Wrench is only set a 2-minute 1.030 on that last lap. Davidson a 0.58, nearly 300 separated the pair. That is how close these margins are and how evenly matched they are in this one. Interesting to see how they now, of course, make their way through the remainder of this one, and especially how they do now navigate this traffic that they have in front of them. And
this is the gap then. Sorry to cut you off there, Max. 1.3 seconds, and it stayed relatively the same so far. So these two pretty much on equal pace so far. Well, 2:01.32 versus 2:01.5. Those are the lap times that come in for either driver. So really, not much difference being made at all. In fact, Peter Davidson took out about, well, maybe 1.5 tenths of his rival. So there's every chance he could still make a power to the lead if Wrench finds some difficulty in these closing few laps. But I think from what we know of David Wrench, he's taken the lead and taken the win in all 4 previous rounds of this championship. He looks set for win number 5. All he needs to do is just stay off the challenge from Peter Davidson and keep it clean, which we know he can do. He's done it already today in the race, and that lap traffic there from I think that is Goad in the number 28 car will have helped his charge just a bit. 10 minutes or thereabouts to go, and I think David Wrench is winding it up to send it for a last few laps. He's got a couple of lap traffic cars to get through, and then I think he'll be home free to take the win, Max.
Yeah, he certainly will indeed. He's mainly just got one more to go, and that will be of Chubey in the Ferrari, who of course occupies the final point-paying position. And we'll just now, of course, he won't really want to get in the way of the race leaders. Probably get out of the way as soon as Wrench gets close enough. But that gap now 1.5 seconds. It has been a faster lap here from David Wrench compared to Peter Davidson. And sectors do show it. Tim Bob's still setting purple first sector, so it shows how the track's rubbered in and how his tyres have been able to stay somewhat nice and toasty. And he's at a 36.1, a 36.5 from Wrench in the first sector, also a 36.5 from Davidson, but 3 attempts found in that middle sector, a 54.1 compared to a 54.4 between Wrench and Davidson. That just shows how much quicker David Wrench is compared to Peter Davidson. So we're going to have, I would say, around about a 4/10 gain between the two on this lap. No, it was a half a second gain between the pair. So half a second. David Wrench certainly just focusing on bringing this one home. He won't take too many risks passing Chubey. And we've got around about 5 more laps remaining here in Bahrain. And a little twitch of the rear end there from Wrench would have potentially been a bit of a heart-in-the-mouth moment, but he had it under control. And now Davidson also needs to find his way past in the Ferrari.
Absolutely. So Chubey, it's been a difficult race for him so far. He's a lap down on the field. He's only 4 seconds ahead of Goad, so there could be about a final points paying position in the last few laps should Goad have the pace to catch back up with them. But for now, this is really hurting Davidson's charge because he's being held up by the Ferrari all the way through this section. The gap's grown to 2.5 seconds already. Down the inside it'll go, so we'll clear it after a couple of corners and then go deep into turn 9, and actually the Ferrari's going to get right back past, almost would have gotten right back past if he hadn't let him through, which is of course the right thing to do. He is lap traffic very much so, and so Peter Davidson, 2.8 seconds the gap now to the leading car of David Wrench. 8.5 minutes to go. I think it's starting to slip out of the equation for Davidson. A second place would be brilliant though. A third place is still on the cards for Tim Bob in the Lexus, so he's recovered really well then, having slaking that longer pits that we wondered whether that would really affect his race later on. It hasn't, because he's managed to get up into P3. He's actually got past Tom Stevens, who is now all on his own. 11 seconds. It's behind the podium. 1.5 to the good of Ollie Parker after that drive-through penalty. Really robbed him of the win. Well, I don't know whether he would have won in the end. It was a very close, tight-fought battle between him and Peter Davidson and David Wrench. I think Wrench would have gotten both of them either way. It was something of an inevitability from my end there. But I think Tom Stevens could definitely have done with a podium for his championship fight. We know the fight for third is incredibly close at the moment. It's actually 3 drivers split by a single point. So every point counts right now. 7 minutes, 40 seconds to go. The gap's all pretty comfortable at the moment. I say Ollie Parker 1.2 behind Stevens, so it's not completely over for the 4th place on the road. But David Wrench now is just setting, he's had the lap traffic to help him out, and he's using that now. He is setting off and still setting the pace here after nearly 90 minutes of racing.
Yeah, he certainly is indeed. It's actually... Oh, I thought that there was a slight glitch there with the I think that was a slight lag moment there from the server, but we saw David Wrench off into our wall And I think we all may have just gave a huge gasp at that moment. But no, David Wrench is still ongoing. It was just a small hiccup on the technical side of things. But for David Wrench, he is still pushing forwards. That last lap from Peter Davidson was a 2-minute 2.4, which is about 1.1 seconds slower, which I think would have really been down to some traffic there, or a mistake of his own. He's actually gone wide through turn 10, so it certainly was a mistake. Tim Bob's in a world of his own in third place at the moment, so he can just bring this one home now and just be happy with the way his race has gone. Another third place will be on the cards, and to think back-to-back third places, he will not be too sad of indeed. I'll give him a brilliant opportunity of taking third place in those drivers' standings, as Tom Stevens and Ollie Parker. Tom's not really broken away from Ollie Parker as much as I thought he would over the course of these past couple of laps, but Parker has no response at the moment. Then it's Juddy, Edward Jones, Diamond, George and Brown rounding out the top 10. Rounding out your point scorers so far, it's Jack Lamont, Brad Jones, Craig Lua, Dave Gregory and Jubei, who round out those point scorers so far here tonight. But that gap now 4 seconds at the front of the field. David Wrench has started the third to last lap. 3 more laps to go here in Bahrain, and it is all going to be about the David Wrench show once we are done. Of course, has won the opening 4 rounds of the season. Even when he starts at the back of the field like he did tonight, he can take race victories. Perfect streak. Certainly looks like it will be on the up once again.
Absolutely. I think this is going to be going down as one of the most entertaining races of the season, just really for the way Wrench has fought back through the race after the issues he had in qualifying. Yes, the server reset would have helped him because it gave him that extra 5 or so minutes he needed to sort out whatever was the problem. And now he's running with that chance, that second chance he's been given by the racing gods, and taking it for full opportunity. Peter Davidson 4.1 seconds back now, so no chance of a resurgence to the lead unless David Wrench does the unthinkable and makes a mistake. 13.5 seconds. Again, the gap is to Tim Bob, with Tom Stevens having dropped 2 seconds in the last lap or so. I wonder what's happened there. Maybe just a slight moment of his own accord. But yes, David Wrench, 24% on the energy. We're looking absolutely fine. Tom Stevens, in the end, he's done enough fuel saving that it's not going to matter. He could have gone away with less, really. Because the great thing, though, here with David Wrench is that not only is he showboating by being 4 seconds ahead and have come through the entire field to lead and to win, he's doing it with nearly 10% more energy than everybody else.
Yeah, he took a longer pit stop, changed the tyres, added more energy to the car, and he has brought it back to, I think, at one stage with that battle with Stevens and Davidson, it was around about 13 seconds back. He then brought it down with plenty of time to go in this race to really just hold on to things and then get the moves done. Of course, Stevens picking up that drive through was a bit of fortune, but you make your own luck. He had to be in that position to capitalise, and that he certainly has, and I believe he would have got through anyway. He just had that much of a pace advantage over Tom Stevens. It wouldn't have mattered. Now make our way up into turn number 4. Late on the brakes, of course. Let's go inside the car. See a lap here, the penultimate lap here with David Wrench. Now makes his way into turns 5 and 6, braking just as the curb starts. Gets it nicely over that inside apex. And the same again through 7. And onto the brakes down into turn 8. We'll go down to first gear. Got to rotate that car through. Rides the curb nicely. And this here, of course, Thomas, is just a smooth lap from the championship leader.
And he's going to extend that championship lead by some margin as well. It's a victory lap in pretty much every single meaning of the word for David Wrench. 2.5 minutes to go. He will have essentially... almost one. I think it'll probably be 2 laps after this one. I think he's just going to get through in time. He could probably slow down and try and make it well, it's going to be very close actually to see if he can make it. I think he might actually be about to start the last lap on the next one. I think yes, indeed he will. He will just miss out on a chance to get another victory lap in the books. It's going to tick down, and by that point now, it's impossible to do and to cross the line, of course. So this will be the final lap of the race for David Wrench. A victory lap in all words, doing a great job tonight with the issues he previously experienced, and now we're going to ride on board as he takes the white flag. 1 lap to go here in Bahrain. What a race for David Wrench.
Yeah, it's been a fantastic race here from David Wrench. Peter Davidson will follow him home in 2nd place. And Tom Stevens will just be able to get this one to the line, like we mentioned, on that riskier strategy. But as of course, David Wrench starts his victory lap. There's no one close enough for any battling at the moment, I do not think, unless Edward Jones and Chris Diamond start to squabble, but I think the pace difference is just not there, and Diamond will just have to settle for an 8th place in this one. But for David Wrench, you can start him at the back of the field, and he will not care. He will still show you the pace he has to hand and the pace he has to offer. He has proven today why he has won, of course, 5 races in a row. He has proven why he is the championship leader. Even though, like he said last week, he only does minimal practice. He doesn't really like this game all too much. He prefers the likes of iRacing and ACC. He just hops on, does a few laps of practice, and so be it. He comes into these races essentially blind, and he still pulls off these magnificent performances. He ended the first half of the season with a race victory. It has been 4 magnificent races at 4 tracks that are very predominant on racing calendars, and he's about to do it at a 5th here at Bahrain. And he has got a little bit of traffic in front of him, but he will not care. David Wrench, no matter where he starts, he'll find a way to fight through. He is inevitable. The immovable object once again has found his way to the top of the standings. It may not have been a lights to flag victory, but he has shown why it is going to be the perfect streak continuing. David Wrench makes it 5 in a row here in Bahrain. A brilliant performance here from the number 32, from the back of the grid to victory. Spectacular stuff from Wrench as Davidson ends up in 2nd place. It will be Tim Bob in 3rd, but the talk of the town once more is the championship leader. No matter where you place this man, he will fight for every last inch, and he will take that race victory once more. The 2nd half of the season is kicked off with a bang.
And absolutely doing the traditional donuts there, absolutely deserved. Across the line comes Tom Stevens. It just wasn't meant to be for the BMW of Tom today. A drive-through penalty just scuppered all his chances. There's Ollie Parker, who will park it on the front straight. No donuts for him. Jones will come through just about a second ahead of Chris Diamond, so Chris Diamond will have to watch that 7th place cross the line in front of him. He'll have to settle for 8th. The closest 2 on the track will cross the line to still get a good haul of points for the both of them. A solid performance from everybody today. And of course, we'll have Jubei to come across the line in about a lap's time to claim that final podium, that final point, sorry. But yes, it was David Wrench all day long, and Tom Stevens tried his best, but in the end it wasn't to be. Here's David Gregory then, just coming through to finish his final lap, 14th to him. He'll be wondering what might have been. Issues aplenty for the Ford man. And indeed, he will cross the line for 14th place. It will be a better week for himself. Hopefully next time. It's such a competitive league, this one. We just never know who's going to end up where. But yes, David Gregory then. With 14% energy left in his tank, the tyres still screaming along the Bahrain International Circuit, even though we are under dark for this race. It's 14th for him. And Jubei will cross the line in 15th. Goad will be the man out, the only man not to score today, as Gregory pulls over and immediately exits back to the garage. But yeah, Max, I think we've said all that needs to be said about this race. Just an absolute David Wrench masterpiece.
It certainly was a masterclass there from David Wrench. And let's bring you the results from, of course, this evening's race. It's David Wrench who takes the top spot from Peter Davidson in 2nd, and then Tim Bob in 3rd. Tom Stevens 4th, Ollie Parker 5th, Joe Juddy 6th, Edward Jones 7th, Diamond in 8th, 9th is George, and 10th, Brown. Then we have Jack Lemond, Brad Jones, Craig Lua, Dave Gregory, and Joubert rounds out your point scorers before Tom Goad. And then Powsland, Jennings, and Fenton were all, of course, drivers tied from the session. But moving swiftly on here, Thomas, we have some of our podium sitters in the commentary box. We'll start from third and work our way forward. Start with you, Tim Bob. First of all, congratulations on another podium. We weren't able to get you last week because it was after Stewart's review. But first of all, talk us through that race. How was things? There, Tim Bob? While Tim Bob sorts mic out quickly, we'll move on to Peter Davidson. Peter, of course, a great result from you as well. Second place after the misfortunes of last week. Just talk us through your race. How did you find things?
It was bad. All credit to Renchi. He's too fast. I want to get to his level. Am I going to get there? I don't know, but he had a good race. I got a bad start. Probably dropped a couple of positions, but managed to keep up with Tom Stevens for quite a while. He let me pass, thank you, as he thought I was faster. But to be fair, as I just said, Renchi was too fast. There was no way of keeping him behind us.
Certainly was very, very quick indeed. But I mean, you gave him a run for his money. You didn't let it be easy. Of course, it took him all the way until the very end. And of course, on the strategy front as well, you had, I think it was around about 10 seconds slower pit stop than Wrench. Just talk us through that as well. Did you take new tyres or did you not take any tyres?
I did. I thought a bit early because I wanted to get out of the dirty air. My front tyres felt sketchy at best. So I changed the two fronts, went back to full fuel, and then went back out in the hope that either Renchi or Tom would take new tyres.
Well, yeah, they certainly did. And of course, Tom tried that really rogue strategy. Did you even think he would make it to the end with the energy he had remaining?
Do you know what? I didn't even notice.
I think he underfueled the car by around about, I think it was 10% on you, and then of course Wrench went for a full tank, and he just had to fuel save massively. I think that's why he had a sheer drop off once he come out of the pit lane. But I mean, of course, with Wrench behind you in that final stint, when you're closing down on Tom Stevens as well, was you kind of hoping you'd get by Stevens and then he kind of holds up Wrench ever so slightly so you can build a bit of a buffer?
That wasn't my mind. I won't lie. But he's a hard man to pass. I know he does a lot of iRacing, so he knows the lines to take to defend. So all fair. I enjoyed it, and I enjoy the P2. So I'm going to take that away as a very positive day today.
Certainly is a very positive day. And one last one from me before I pass you over to Thomas, if he's got any questions for you. We head to Imola next week. Are you confident around Imola? Is that a track you're strong at, or is that a bit of a bogey track for you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I think with a bit of practice, I could be a lot better than I am. There are certain parts of the track where I know I'm slow, so it's now looking at Dave and going, right, where's he quick? Where can I take advantage? Where is he slow? And just go from there.
Ciao. Thomas, is there any questions from you?
I think just your reflections on that awesome battle you had. It was 3 BMWs, of course. You all know that car so well. What was it like being involved in essentially a race-long fight for the lead? And when you made your pit strategy decisions, was that a sense of reacting to what other guys did, or was that very much you were sticking to the plan you had beforehand?
I kind of got to being behind Tom, and at that point, I thought I need to do something to try and yeah, I knew I had that little bit extra pace, so I needed to do something to get clear of him. So from an early onset, I thought, right, I'm going to do the early pit, go back to a full tank, change the 2 front tires, and just try and push and get past him at the pit stop. But he didn't, as far as I know, change his tires. So he still had a 5 second sort of lead over me when he came back out.
Yeah, go on.
No, it's not me.
That's fun then. I just also you led that race for so long in the early stages. Are you disappointed not to convert it, or is it very much a case of? And you mentioned earlier, you said you want to get on Wrenchy's level, but what's it like to lead such a competitive field?
uh, it's fun. I will say it is very much fun, and I hope to get to do it a lot more in the coming races. I've already got my practice in for Le Mans, so I'm looking forward to that. I just need to find a couple more seconds because I reckon Wrenchy's going to be around about 3:58 on that track. So I'm not far off, but we'll see how we go.
Certainly will indeed. But thank you, Peter, and yeah, congratulations on the second place, and hopefully we'll see you back in the comms box next week.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you for joining us, and that is now moving on swiftly to Tim Bob, who has fixed his mic, thankfully. Tim, of course, congratulations on that third place. Once again, just like I said, talk us through things. How did you find that race?
It was just about managing the tyres, really, for me. Making sure that I didn't overheat them too much. I was going for a couple of fast laps and then want to cool them down. But yeah, I'm a bit too old to catch Wrenchy, but you'll all get there one day, I suppose. Good course, loved it. Turn 9-10 is my favourite part of this course. You just off balance around the camber before you go into the hairpin. It's crazy. Love it. Thanks to everybody else. Good clean racing again. And somebody gave me a place, so thank you very much again.
Yeah, Tom Stevens got the drive-through, but you say you love turns 9 and 10. It seemed like you really enjoyed the first sector as well. You were flying all race long, all qualifying long in that first part of the track. Of course, purple sectors flying in left, right, and centre. What was it about the Lexus that really just gelled well with that first part of the lap?
Just getting on the power early. It's quite stable, so I'm even getting on it before the corner exit. So it just gives a little boost over everybody else down there. And with the lowest wing I can manage, then it's just a question if somebody is behind me in the cornery bendy bits, I'll just get in the way and blast away on the straights.
Exactly what you did in that first sector for a majority of the race, and of course, you were kind of in a bit of no man's land for a majority of things. You were keeping with the BMWs, but then you started to slowly fade away. Was that just due to the fact that the BMW is just so much quicker around a circuit like this? Of course, being the only Lexus on the grid and being the only Lexus non-BMW driver fighting in that top four, was you just at a bit too much of a disadvantage?
It's a bit. The pace that they were pushing was a bit close to a cardiac arrest for me, so I thought, stay in my space, bring it home safely, and all will be good.
Certainly was very good indeed. And what happened in the pit window phase as well? It seemed that you got jumped by Joe Juddy. Was it just you took a bit too much fuel on, or was there a bit of an issue getting into the pit box? What happened there?
No, smooth in, smooth out. I think I took an extra lap of fuel that I didn't need, but also I took 4 tyres. I'm not sure what Juddy took, but it seemed like he came out with a little bit less fuel than me and possibly a little some older tyres.
That maybe is why he jumped you. But of course, as I said to Peter, one last one from me before I pass you over to Thomas. Of course, we head to Imola next time out. The Lexus tends to go quite well around there. Is that a track you're confident in, or is it going to be a track you might struggle at?
I like Imola. I'm not the greatest at it, but when you do Imola, it's pizza night, so I love that sort of thing.
Hopefully, you do go well. And
Brilliant. And of course, got that P3. How satisfying is it to kind of just be the only one really up there at that kind of echelon of this race in a race dominated by BMWs?
I think it's easy to say we're all up there really, all of us. But the odd little mistake that other guys were having, I didn't. So circle it like a vulture and survive after death.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Well, we also have race winner David Wrench in here as well. Hi, Dave.
Hello.
I'll mirror Max's opening question. Solid, clean. I mean, it seemed like you had pace for days out there.
Yeah, the this race was sort of a challenge by one of the other drivers, Pausland. He said that I couldn't start from the back and put in a good showing, so put my money where my mouth is and went for it.
Max tells me you barely did any practice for this one. Apparently, LMU isn't your favoured sim, but you again only man consistently in the 2 minutes, but another win, 5 in a row. Do you think you can go and make it 100% on the season, possibly?
The arrogant part of me says, yeah, sure, why not? But as I've said time and time again at the end of every race, the next track in the season, I've never raced in this game. I've only just got the achievement for completing 25 online races. So it's just carrying over nuances from other sims. I don't know how Imola feels on this game. I need to get to grips with that. I know in my preferred sim, it's dangerous over the curbs. So hopefully the BMW can eliminate that and give me an easier time.
Yeah, well, when we think about Imola, we know that's next up. We know the BMW is a good track round there. Are you confident for that one as well, given the track record, pun intended?
Confident, no. I say it every time. Pete, although he says that I'm faster, he keeps me humble. Same as Juddy, same as Tom, Tim, everybody in here. Although yes, the timing sheet may say I'm faster, it's not as easy as it looks. Nobody made it simple today, and I applaud everybody for giving it a damn good go.
Well, of course, Renchi, great to have you back as the race winner again and back in the comms book. Just overall, though, I mean, in the pit stop phase, you went for a completely different strategy. You took on, of course, you went longer, but you also took on a full tank of fuel as well. Is that all strategic, or is that just to get you more used to the car at high fuel loads, or what was the thinking behind that?
I could sit here and lie to you and say, yep, it was full strategy because the weight felt nice, but in reality, I slipped and left it on 100%.
Oh.
There was absolutely zero strategy there. I panicked coming into the pit lane, had enough time to remember to put 4 tyres on, and yeah, just went for it.
I mean, it gave you the opportunity to go flat out till the end of the race, and you started setting fastest lap after fastest lap. Of course, you're now 5 for 5. Of course, Thomas has already asked if you can perfect the season, but just, of course, talking in terms of the championship, you've now got a lovely, healthy margin over the rest of the field. Is it now just damage limitation? Even if you can't win the next few races, just try and get as high as you possibly can?
I mean, Imola for me in a Porsche Cup car, I'd say, yeah, sure, we'll make it 6 for 6. In a GT3, probably not. Not the biggest fan of this circuit in GT3, same with Portimao. The only one that we've got coming up now that I'm confident at is Le Mans. So we'll just have to see. I mean, at the end of the day, if I get the win, I get the win. If I don't, I'm not going to hold it against people. I'm not going to say, oh, it's because I'm bad at the track. It's they were better drivers.
Yes, certainly will. Indeed, and of course you completed that challenge from coming from the back of the grid all the way to the front. So congratulations on that. You showed Pausland exactly like you put the money where your mouth is, and he's now got to pay you a little bit from that. But of course, how was it making your way through the pack today compared to just being at the front and driving off into a bit more of a mental and physical test on you?
Everybody says that it's just 90 minutes of hot laps at the front. It was 90 minutes of hot laps from the back. It just so happened that I had to make audacious dive bombs and risky overtakes because for every car I get stuck behind is another 10th, 2 tenths, 5 tenths second that Tom and Peter were pulling away. So it was definitely a lot more work. Normally I'm quite quiet in the VCs anyway, but yeah, I was silent until the point I got P1. So
Well, congratulations, David, and yeah, just enjoy that race win. That's now 5 for 5, and You never know. Imola may not be one of your best tracks, but we may see you back as 6 for 6 next week.
Cheers, guys. Thanks.
For the top 3 all there for joining us in the interviews. And one last thing before we head off. We've already mentioned that, of course, next week we head to Imola. But let's now bring up the, of course, calendar. And actually, no, it seems that my OBS has decided we're not going to bring up the calendars, but I'll still read it out to you anyway. Next week we head to Imola before a trip to Portimao for round 7, and then Le Mans to end off the season. Of course, it's the big one at the very end, Thomas, but out of Imola and Portimao, what one are you looking forward to more if you do come back at some point this season?
I think Portimao. I love the track. I think it's great for racing. We see it in real life with the GT3s. It's immense fun. It is, I think, the most roller coaster like track in the world just because of how crazy the elevation changes. I've done a bit of LMP3 racing around there in the sim in LMU, and it's crazy how there's so many blind crests. It's almost at times feel like you're doing a bit of rallying. It's so hard to predict and see where some corners are. I think that's going to really shake the field up. I'm really looking forward to Portimao.
Should be a very good end to the season in. But that's going to be all, ladies and gentlemen, of tonight's action. So make sure you tune in next week for a trip over to Italy for Imola, our second time to Italy this season. See you in the next one. Join us at 8 p.m. UK time, 9 p.m. European time next Monday for the 6th round of the season. Can Renchi go 6 for 6, or will we finally get another winner? Stay safe, stay well, and we shall see you in the next one. Thank you, and bye-bye.